Chapter 200. You know, Chu Qingyan hadn't recovered from the Emperor Emeritus's sudden change in attitude, but when she heard his question, she immediately became spirited. The Emperor Emeritus glanced at her, and suddenly kept her in suspense. Beg me, old urchin. Chu Qingyan silently cursed him in her heart, but she forced a smile and fawned over him. I beg you, grandfather. Grandfather, you're the best. The Emperor Emeritus nodded in satisfaction. Good girl. However, he suddenly raised a finger. How can words represent sincerity? Chu Qingyan silently cursed him again. Looting a burning house. Looking at the Emperor Emeritus's shaking finger, she thought for a moment and said, 1 plate of pastries. No, 10 plates. The Emperor Emeritus retracted his finger, unperturbed. Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and told herself that it was worth it for the big ice cube. In the end, she gritted her teeth and nodded. Deal. The Emperor Emeritus smiled triumphantly, but in the blink of an eye, he resumed his solemn and dignified appearance of an elder. Chu Qingyan blushed with shame. His ability to change his expression was too strong. Yin lass, I feel that Sewer seems to be sad. What do you mean? Chu Qingyan was at a loss. His imperial father went too far this time. The Emperor Emeritus faintly sighed. If this continues, I'm afraid that Su will be crushed by the burden in his heart. Grandfather, don't speak half-heartedly. I don't understand. Chu Qingyan was a bit anxious. The Emperor Emeritus's words seemed to be very serious. What did he mean by the burden in his heart? What did he mean by crushed? Could he not speak in riddles like this? Her little brain still hadn't figured it out. The retired emperor looked pitifully at Chu Qingyan, whose head was about to explode. He shook his head and said, Did you really think that leaving the capital this time was just a simple search for ores? No, the truth is far more than that. Could it be that this ore hunt is very dangerous? Or is there another mission besides ore hunting? Chu Qingyan immediately reacted, and her tone was unusually serious. The retired emperor smiled when he saw that she had keenly hit the nail on the head. She was indeed worthy of being the person he had chosen. She wouldn't be too stupid, but I can only reveal this much. Unless Sewer is willing to tell you, you can only find the answer yourself. The retired emperor stood up. He had already revealed too much today. Originally, he only needed to watch from the sidelines. But now many things had gone off the rails. He needed to come out and give some guidance. Chu Qingyan felt that this retired emperor really made people gnash their teeth in anger. Every time he said something important, she had to guess. Did he really think that she was a roundworm in his stomach and could guess everything? However, retired emperor did not pay attention to her resentful expression. He pointed a finger at her, and then swayed out of the door. Chu Qingyan could only pull the quilt and sulk. Could it be that Sichuan Emperor had given Big Ice Cube something else? What was it that could make the retired emperor so disappointed in his son? Why didn't Big Ice Cube tell him? It seemed like even Hualing and the others didn't know. If I knew that things would turn out like this, perhaps I wouldn't have summoned you here. After leaving the room, retired emperor turned around to look at Chu Qingyan, who was deep in thought. He sighed deeply and hoped that fate would not play with people. He also hoped that her arrival could change Sewer's fate and Sichuan's fate. It seemed ridiculous to entrust everyone's fate to a little child. But who knew? Perhaps there really would be a miracle? Master, are you still thinking about what retired emperor said? After a long time, Xining saw that her master was still in a daze and couldn't help but ask. Chu Qingyan absent-mindedly nodded. Her thoughts were still drifting. Xining thought for a while and comforted her. Master, I think the retired emperor might be teasing you. Usually 9 out of 10 of the retired emperor's words are lies, so don't take it to heart. I'm just worried. What if what he said today is the truth other than those 9 sentences? Regarding Big Ice Cube, she would rather believe 3,000 mistakes than let go of one. So there was no what if. Xining scratched her head. Why don't you ask His Highness? Isn't it better to clarify some things in person? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but raise her hand to rub Xining's little head. If it was really that simple, I would have asked long ago. But His Highness obviously doesn't want to tell others. Look, even the fierce cavalry who has followed him for so many years Which one knows? Xining nodded. At this moment, she saw His Highness enter the room and immediately reminded the person in front of her. Master, speak of the devil. Chu Qingyan immediately raised her head and saw the person who entered the room. She said with some joy, Big Ice Cube, why are you here? Aren't you recuperating in the room? It's just a minor injury, don't worry. Xiao Su's eyes were indifferent as he swept a glance at her face. She had already recovered some color, so he was relieved. Sigh, she didn't take her body seriously. She made it seem as if the emperor wasn't worried, but the eunuch was. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips then asked, That's right, Big Ice Cube, when are we leaving this place? We leave tomorrow. Xiao Su sat down on the chair, his gaze coincidentally resting on the ebony beads she was playing with in her hand. His brows furrowed slightly. Chu Qingyan, who didn't notice his mood, exclaimed, That's great, we can finally leave this damned place. The three idiots of heaven, earth, and human have turned this place into a purgatory on earth. Every time I think about how I'm sleeping on so many corpses, I feel uneasy. Xiao Su responded somewhat absent-mindedly, then asked, Where did you get the ebony beads in your hand? You mean this? Chu Qingyan raised her hand and waved the Buddhist bead necklace in her hand at him. Master Su Jian gave it to me. He said that it's been consecrated and can keep me safe. Chu Qingyan placed the ebony beads in her palm and examined them carefully, then muttered, Is it because every time Master Su Jian sees me, I look like I'm being hunted down, so as a Buddhist disciple with pure six senses, he can't stand it anymore, so he kindly gave me this Buddhist bead necklace. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes as he watched her play with the priceless Buddhist bead necklace, as if it were an ordinary toy. He thought to himself, Su Jian is a highly respected young holy monk in Sichuan Kingdom. It doesn't make sense that he would appear so coincidentally to save the little fellow time and time again. Seeing that Big Ice Cube suddenly stopped talking, Chu Qingyan looked up at him. She thought of the retired emperor's words and couldn't help but ask worriedly, Big Ice Cube, are you feeling unwell anywhere? Or is he hiding something from us? The question was on the tip of her tongue, but she didn't ask. In the future, don't casually accept things from others. Xiao Su looked into her eyes and said sternly. Chu Qingyan was a little shocked. It was rare to see Big Ice Cube so fierce. Could it be that he was jealous when he saw that she accepted Su Jian's Buddhist bead necklace? Did he feel that his position was being challenged? But she didn't seem to have said anything good about Su Jian. Chapter 201. However, no one was more important to her than the Big Ice Cube. So she nodded with a serious face. All right, I won't casually accept people's things. As long as it wasn't casually accepted, it was fine. It was happily decided just like that. His cold eyes warmed up and Xiao Su stood up to instruct Xining. We'll set off tomorrow. Pack your master's things properly. Yes. Xining stood at attention and respectfully responded. After Xiao Su left, Xining leaned over to her master's ear and whispered, Master, don't you feel that Lord is becoming more and more like an old mother? No matter how big or small your matters are, he always worries about them? Chu Qingyan glanced at her. Do you dare to repeat what you just said in front of His Highness? Xining immediately straightened up and pretended that she didn't say anything. This servant remembers now. Master, your medicine is still on the stove. This servant will quickly go and take a look. After saying that, she ran away as if there was oil on the soles of her feet. Chu Qingyan laughed and shook her head, but after laughing, her finger lightly tapped the quilt. Although the Big Ice Cube didn't say anything, it didn't mean that she couldn't find out. She had to find out what secret mission Sichuan Emperor gave him that even the retired emperor couldn't believe it. The next day, the sky had already cleared up. The storm of the past few days seemed to be just an illusion. Today, the sky was clear and the wind was gentle. Small droplets of water fell from the grass, butterflies fluttered in the air, the trees were green, and the distant mountains were covered in snow. Everything was so beautiful that it made people feel comfortable. Those filthy matters had already been washed away by the heavy rain. The three devils of heaven, earth, and man had already been handed over to the government. After they left, the soldiers sealed up the inn. Chu Qingyan turned back to look at the first inn that was leaning left and right as if a gust of wind could blow it away. Her heart was filled with sorrow. The only inn in 100 li radius actually hid so many wrong souls. She hoped that after this storm, they would be able to reincarnate and not encounter this kind of misfortune again. Chu Qingyan swept her eyes over the surrounding people, but did not see Su Fei, so she asked about Hualing. Hualing looked back at the guest room and said, Great Master Su Jian said that he wanted to help these undead find peace, so he will stay in the inn and won't travel with us. Chu Qingyan nodded and got on the carriage, heading towards the ferry. When they arrived at the ferry, Chu Qingyan saw a passenger ship that was as tall as 5 people anchored at the ferry. It was divided into 2 levels. The upper level was for people to live in, and the lower level was for luggage and carriages. The mast was upright, and the white sail had been raised. She saw Turin waving at them at a glance. Where did you get this ship? Chu Qingyan stepped on the wooden planks and lightly jumped up and down. This was her first time riding a ship. Since she was young, she had always crawled on land and rode on trains, so she was very curious about this type of transportation on the sea. This ship, this subordinate brought people to make it overnight. Because time was a bit tight, there are some places that aren't very exquisite. Little young master can just casually look around. Mu Ling was ordering people to raise the sail when she heard the little princess question. She turned around and replied, My God, this was called not exquisite? It was even painted, and the patterns on the wooden windows were carved so lifelike, but she could casually look around? It wasn't that she hadn't seen ancient ships on TV, but this ship could easily leave them in the dust. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but admire it. The people under the big ice cube were really too amazing. It was simply too amazing. But not long after she praised them in her heart, she felt miserable. Because she had never been on a ship before. She didn't know that she would get seasick. So when the ship broke through the waves, she fainted beautifully. When she opened her eyes, her head was still dizzy. Big ice cube, where are we now? She felt that this environment was a little familiar, and it was a little small. Seeing that she was still injured, Xiao Su looked up at her. We've already crossed Jiuxi River, and are about to enter the city. Chu Qingyan instantly got up. She actually slept all the way across the river. She originally wanted to see the sunrise on the river. Xiao Su saw her defeated expression and couldn't help but say, Your body is too weak. You'll get sick from sitting on a ship. There are many roads on the ship, so you have to be mentally prepared. Don't be afraid. The first time is unfamiliar, but the second time is familiar. At most, I'll be fine after I get sick. This was her experience of sitting on public transport. She had a physique that made her sick on all kinds of transportation, except for 2-wheeled or 3-wheeled vehicles. Later on, she forced herself to sit on those vehicles and barely managed to deal with her sickness. Xiao Su shook his head and continued to read the secret letter in his hand. His brows were slightly furrowed. He estimated that they would have to stay in Pingyang City for a period of time this time. After entering Pingyang City, Hualing found a tea house and stopped. Chu Qingyan got off the horse carriage and couldn't stand still. Luckily, she grabbed onto Big Ice Cube's sleeve, otherwise, she would have made a fool of herself. After getting sick from the car in the morning, she felt that her legs were weak. As expected, the after-effects of seasickness were very serious. But when she felt Big Ice Cube's teasing gaze, she immediately let go of his sleeve and pretended that nothing was wrong as she looked around. This Pingyang city looked quite lively, but there seemed to be a lot of beggars on the streets. Most of them were dressed in rags, either standing or kneeling to beg. Their faces were sallow and their bodies were thin. Their clothes were ragged, and they looked very pitiful. Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. At this time, everyone had already entered the tea house. Under Xining's urging, she also walked in. Dear guests, where do you sit? We have seats in the main hall, or in the private rooms. The waiter immediately welcomed them. Hualing replied, Prepare a private room. Just as Hualing finished speaking, Chu Qingyan shook her head and said, No, let's go to the main hall. After saying that, she found a seat in the corner and waved her hand at Xiao Su and the others. That waiter was a little hesitant, not knowing who to listen to, but that delicate-looking youth seemed to be the master. Although Hualing didn't understand why the young princess wanted to sit with these commoners, he glanced at his master. He didn't seem to have any objections, so he followed the young princess' wishes. When they sat down, Grand Emperor looked around the unusually lively main hall. He winked at Chu Qingyan and said with a smile, "I didn't think that stinky brat likes to join in on the fun like this old man." Chu Qingyan propped up her cheeks with both hands and smiled slyly. "Grandfather, I'm not doing this to join in on the fun. It's because when we want to understand a city, we just need to go to a few places to know what the city is like." "Which places?" "Tea houses." Grand Emperor looked at her in a new light as he spoke in surprise. "Tea houses are one place. There are also government offices and brothels." Chu Qingyan's fingers tapped the table as she slowly said, "Because tea houses were the commoners' favorite places to chat, brothels were where people from all walks of life gathered, and government offices were where the commoners and officials interacted." Xiao raised a brow. How did this little fellow know so much? But when he heard her say brothels, he thought of how she suddenly disappeared last time, and his face instantly turned dark. Next time, he would definitely discipline her and make her go to those places less often. And at this time, several large men near their table were whispering about something, attracting the attention of Chu Qingyan and the others. Chapter 202. Guest A. Hey, do you feel that Pingyang City is becoming more and more chaotic recently? Guest B. Yes, what do you think is going on? Children go missing every few days, and we haven't found them yet. I don't even dare to let my child out. Guest A. That's right. My neighbor's grandson, who is not even 3 years old, was sleeping soundly at home a few days ago. Once the sun rose, he disappeared. It's like seeing a ghost. Guest C. There are rumors going around that Pingyang City has offended the gods in the heavens. That's why there is such a disaster. Guests A and B chatted for a while. Then, they felt bored and left after putting down the money for their tea. Chu Qingyan and the others at the table frowned. Chu Qingyan turned and asked, "Big Ice Block, do you believe that the gods are behind this?" Zizi doesn't talk about strange forces and gods. Xiao held his teacup and replied nonchalantly. Chu Qingyan nodded. She didn't believe this either. The children were stolen. It must be man-made. Hey, have you all heard? Prefect Liu is going to marry his 18th concubine again. Prefect Liu is already over 60 years old. How can he still have so much energy? Guest D said mockingly. The person sitting in front of him said disapprovingly. Didn't his 16th concubine give birth to a daughter for him not long ago? This proves that he is still vigorous despite his age. Guest D sneered. But I don't mean to say this. Prefect Liu already has 9 daughters. Is he planning to have another one to make it perfect? Don't talk too much. If his lackeys hear this, I'm afraid you won't be able to find your teeth again. Okay. You won't even let me speak properly. I can't stay in Pingyang City any longer. Guest D shook his head and said helplessly. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan looked at the retired emperor, who was happily sipping his tea. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Grandfather, I realize that the governor of the Liu clan is quite controversial in Pingyang City. Also TSK, an old cow eating young grass." Hearing this, the retired emperor stroked his beard. His expression didn't look too good. This is too outrageous. When we go later, we'll scold them properly. Don't let them think too much. They didn't even do a few proper things. Chu Qingyan looked at the Grand Emperor suspiciously. I think it's better for you not to appear. What if he offers you a few plates of pastries and you'll be roped in by him? Hey, rascal. How dare you slander me? The Grand Emperor was so angry that he was about to stomp on his feet. At this moment, Xiao raised his hand to stop the two from bickering. Let's hide our identities for now and wait and see. Chu Qingyan stopped fooling around with the retired emperor when she heard this. Her eyes darted around as she asked, Big Ice Cube, are you planning to go incognito? Yes, it's convenient, Xiao said clearly and peacefully. Chu Qingyan felt like there was a hidden meaning in the Big Ice Cube's words. She couldn't help but look at the Grand Emperor, asking him with her eyes. Unfortunately, the Grand Emperor pretended not to see her gaze, and focused on his pastries. At this time, a few guests came in. They happened to pass by their table, and heard what they were discussing. It'll be Governor Liu's 60th birthday in 3 days. I wonder how grand it will be this time. Those merchant officials will probably go and curry favor with him again. I also want to see it for myself. Do you think anyone can get an invitation? They have to be rich or noble. Otherwise, they won't let you in. After they left, Xiao Su ordered Hualing, get the invitation. We'll go to the banquet in 3 days. Yes. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin. She had to see how tall and sturdy this Governor Lu was. Otherwise, these 18 concubines, chi. After the group left the tea house, they went to an inn. When they entered the city, LVE and the others were already waiting at the inn. When they came in, they could directly check in. The bustling inn didn't pay much attention to this group of unfamiliar guests. Pingyang City was close to the capital, and there were many merchants coming and going. Everyone just took a look and went about their own business. When Chu Qingyan went upstairs, she could still hear the guests downstairs discussing the things they heard in the tea house. She thought carefully. It seemed like Luing occupied all the gossip headlines in this Pingyang City. However, there were more negative comments than positive comments. She shook her head. To what extent did he have to be the gossip of all the people? Chu Qingyan went in, and Xining brought hot water for her to freshen up. She had indeed sweated a lot on the way here. It was good to freshen up. After she changed her clothes, she looked at the gauze on her shoulder and sighed slightly. It seemed that she had been here for almost a year, but there were many major and minor injuries. She really didn't know who she had offended. Just as she was sighing, someone knocked on the door. Xining went to open the door. Eldest young master. Outside, everyone addressed Xiao Su as eldest young master. Chu Qingyan heard the sound and looked at the person who walked in from the door. She smiled and said, "Big Ice Cube, why are you here?" Xiao Su, who was wearing a gauze hat, walked in front of her and put the hat on the table. He said clearly, "It's time for you to change your dressing." It was only then that Chu Qingyan saw the bandages and ointment in his hands. She swallowed her saliva and tried to negotiate. "Well, Big Ice Cube, I realized that my injuries have improved a lot recently. Why don't I change it myself? After all, I have to learn how to bandage myself in the future." Xiao Su's hand, which was putting down the gauze, paused. Hearing her last sentence, his eyes darkened. "There won't be a next time. In the future, I won't let you have the chance to get hurt again." What? Chu Qingyan touched her head. What did Big Ice Cube mean? Why did he say something that didn't make sense? But just as she was in a daze, the other party had already taken off her clothes halfway to her shoulder and skillfully untied the gauze. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but cover her eyes with her hands. Forget it, forget it. She was only 10 years old, and her body hadn't fully developed yet. Why was she being so pretentious? Didn't he see Big Ice Cube's eyes looking straight ahead? He won't take advantage of us. But when she thought of this, why did she feel a little sad? She missed her body in the modern world. At least when she was in school, there were still talent scouts who wanted to poach her to be a print model. With this small body now, when would she be able to have a voluptuous and graceful figure? Just as she was daydreaming, Xiao Su had already changed the medicine for her. He raised his eyebrows when he saw her absent-minded look. Recently, this little girl seemed to be more and more able to hide things, unlike in the past where she always showed her emotions on her face. However, this was also a good thing. At least it proved that she had grown up. But he didn't allow her to hide anything from him. "What are you thinking about?" He wiped his hands with the cloth that Xining handed over. Chu Qingyan came back to her senses. From this angle, she just happened to see his delicate chin. The mask he wore today only covered his eyes and the bridge of his nose, revealing his thin pink lips. It was like a red dot on a green tree branch in the spring wind. Chapter 203. Chu Qingyan suddenly stared blankly. She couldn't help but think, if Big Ice Block's face hadn't been burned by that fire, then what kind of beauty would he have had? His temperament was cold and lofty. His eyes were filled with starlight, as if he had gathered all the light in the world and brewed the most mellow star wine. Just a single glance was enough to make people drown in it. It wasn't the wine that made people drunk, but they themselves. Although Big Ice Block looked like a handsome man with a cold temperament and didn't smile often, his smile was enough to make people fall. She never thought that the mask on his face would cover up his brilliance. On the contrary, it was just right to cover it up, adding a mysterious charm to him. Xiao didn't hear her reply for a while, but he could feel her gaze on his face. It was hot and faintly bright. He faintly glanced at a certain someone who was still immersed in her own thoughts and coughed a few times. Chu Qingyan was immediately pulled back from her thoughts and hurriedly sat up. Are you feeling unwell? Quickly sit down, I'll help you smooth out your breathing. Ever since she knew that he had suffered internal injuries, this little fellow would be extremely alert whenever she saw him. Her little eyes were filled with worry at the slightest movement. Xiao couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't as weak as she thought, but she had already pulled him down to sit beside the bed. Wait, I'll help you massage. As she said that, Chu Qingyan's two little paws were already on his shoulders. She massaged him and said, I used to minor in Chinese medicine. There was a course on how to unblock people's meridians. At that time, she was relatively lazy and didn't listen to the basic elective classes. She only studied the unblocking of meridians very seriously because during the final exam, the teacher used this as the assessment score. However, in the entire dormitory, she was the only one who impulsively chose that course. In order to not fail, she pulled the 5 people in the dormitory one by one to do the revision. In the end, she passed, and her few roommates were all pressed down by her. She couldn't bear to look back on the past, but she was incomparably glad. If it wasn't for the 3 days and 2 nights that year, her technique today wouldn't be so skillful. Xiao, who originally wanted to say that it was fine, swallowed his words when her little paws touched him. He slightly closed his eyes and enjoyed this little fellow's rare care. His skin felt comfortable to the touch, and was in line with the fashion industry's evaluation of handsome men. He looked thin when he wore clothes and muscular when he took them off. He was like a moving clothes hanger. No matter what kind of clothes he wore, he could vividly display the most beautiful side of the clothes. Chu Qingyan's little paws couldn't help but poke his shoulders. His muscles were elastic and lively. She pressed on his shoulder blades. His bones were strong, and her gaze slid down his slender neck. Hidden under the luxurious clothes, his jade-like skin was like the snow of Mount Tian Shan, giving people the illusion that it would be broken by the slightest touch. She couldn't help but suck in her saliva. Borrowing the water to bloom, the water is the bone, and the jade is the flesh. Suddenly, he heard the person behind him muttering to herself, and the pair of restless paws poking his body. Xiao narrowed his eyes and grabbed the pair of paws. All right, I don't feel any discomfort anymore. Chu Qingyan reluctantly retracted her hands. Looking at the person who had stood up, an idea suddenly appeared in her mind. Big Ice Cube, let's go to the night market tonight. I heard that Pingyang City is very lively at night. Shall we go and take a look? Xiao instinctively wanted to reject, but he paused under her expectant gaze. During this period of time, she was injured and was mostly confined to the carriage or the room. He rarely allowed her to move around freely. It seemed that her active personality could no longer be restrained at this time. In the end, he said, We can, but you have to bring a bodyguard. There's no need for bodyguards. I'll bring you along. You just have to bring the money. Chu Qingyan blinked at him. Don't you know that when you're injured or sick, you have to go out for a walk and breathe in the fresh air so that your body can recover faster? Xiao always felt that her brain had a lot of twisted logic that was difficult to refute. Seeing that he readily agreed, she was indescribably happy. Her bright eyes darted around. Big Ice Cube, I heard that Ethereal has superb disguise skills. You can get him to help you change your appearance. That way, you won't have to wear a gauze hat and a mask all day long and worry that your identity will be exposed. Although many people knew that they were heading north to search for ores, they kept a low profile to avoid trouble along the way and to hide their identities. However, the silver mask on Big Ice Cube's face was too recognizable. So, along the way, as long as there were outsiders, he would wear a gauze hat. She had worn a gauze hat before, and felt that it was very inconvenient. Her heart ached for Big Ice Cube, so she thought of this idea. Xiao thought carefully and seemed to think that her idea was not bad. He nodded. Xining immediately went to summon Ethereal. Ethereal, who had rushed over as soon as he heard the news, thought that something had happened to the two's wounds. When he came in and saw that the two were sitting well, he sighed in relief and asked what was the matter. When he heard the young princess consort's idea, Ethereal expressed his approval. Chu Qingyan's eyes instantly lit up. Ethereal, quickly help your young master change his appearance. Xining, quickly help me get a chair. This young master wants to see this amazing technique. Ethereal mercilessly exposed her little thoughts. Little young master, you have an ulterior motive. This is this one's unique skill and cannot be exposed. So this one asks little young master to leave. Chu Qingyan was instantly stunned. This Ethereal did not feel good because he did not oppose her, right? She just wanted to take the opportunity to see what the big ice block looked like under the mask. Even if his face was disfigured, she could at least see what his facial features looked like. Xiao Su's gaze swept over the clearly angry little fellow. He curled his lips and raised a hand to pat her little head. His voice was gentle. I'll come to pick you up at night. His tone was coaxing a child, but Chu Qingyan fell for it. She immediately waved her hand. Okay, I'll wait for you obediently. Seeing the big ice block leave, Chu Qingyan immediately stopped smiling and snorted at Ethereal. Why aren't you hurrying to change your master's appearance? Why are you standing here like a statue? Ethereal narrowed his eyes and smiled. Little young master, you'll know when it's time. Sometimes you can't force it. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. What was this person playing at? Was he itching for a beating? When he finished speaking, Ethereal leisurely walked towards the door. Chu Qingyan said to Xining in bewilderment, Say, the woman who takes a fancy to Ethereal in the future. What kind of unique taste do you think she will have? To be able to get along with this weirdo, I can't help but admire her courage. Ethereal, who had just walked out of the room, stumbled and a cross appeared on his forehead. Little Princess Consort, that's enough. He was just reminding her out of kindness, all right? Chu Qingyan and Xining were laughing so hard behind them that they could not stop. Who knew what would happen in the future? Wasn't everyone right? Chapter 204. Chu Qingyan was fidgeting in the room. Although Big Ice Cube was only in disguise and looked completely different from her real face, she still felt nervous just thinking about it. At that time, she didn't use a mask to cover her face, so her face could be seen from 360 degrees. Master, stop pacing around. Come and drink some water. Xining considerately poured her a cup of water. Chu Qingyan took the water, still looking expectant. Xining, what do you think will happen when eldest young master takes off his mask? Xining pursed her lips and looked at her master's distracted look. She couldn't help but laugh. Master, won't you find out later? Chu Qingyan thought about it and agreed. But why was she so nervous? When the room door was pushed open, Chu Qingyan immediately put down the cup and stood up to look. Xining shook her head. Why did Master look like a groom who was about to marry his bride? Full of anticipation and uneasiness? A man in luxurious black robes slowly appeared in front of her as the room door opened. The night gradually darkened, and the last rays of the setting sun penetrated the clouds and shone into the room. It also lit up Chu Qingyan's eyes. The man in front of her had eyebrows like the spring breeze in February, eyes like black jade, and an outstanding appearance. His lips were like dew-stained flower petals, lustrous and sparkling. Handsome eyebrows and slender eyes. He looked around and had an elegant temperament, forgetting all worldly things. Only that faint gaze was like the snow on a mountain, pure and cold. His skin was as white as jade, more delicate and lustrous than a woman's, making people think of sparkling and translucent jelly. She couldn't help but want to raise her finger and poke at it. A noble and famous young man, bright and spirited, enough to turn all living things upside down with just one look. Big Ice Cube. She could tell at a glance that this person was the one she had been longing for. Although she had never seen his face before, and the person in front of her had also disguised himself, she was familiar with the cold indifference on him. Okay, I'm here to take you out. Xiao Su didn't enter the room. Instead, he stood outside with his hands behind his back, waiting for the person inside to come out. It wasn't that he didn't see the lingering amazement in her eyes, but he felt that such a silly little fellow was really losing face for him. It seemed that in the future, He would have to teach her what it meant to remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of her. If Chu Qingyan knew his unromantic thoughts, she would probably hit her head against the wall. Everyone loved beauty. This was human nature. She walked in front of him and stretched out her claws, wanting to poke his face to see if he was wearing a human skin mask. However, he stopped her halfway and grabbed her claws. "Stop fooling around." Ethereal, who had been ignored, coughed softly. "Young master, you don't have to waste your time. This human skin mask is glued together seamlessly. You won't be able to find any flaws." Chu Qingyan wasn't angry that Ethereal had exposed her thoughts. Instead, she asked him, "Does this mask resemble your master's original appearance?" Ethereal smiled but didn't answer. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him, then turned to look at the person beside her. "Cousin, let's go out." "Ignore him." Oh, you're burning the bridge so quickly," Ethereal shouted behind them. Chu Qingyan turned back and rolled her eyes at him. Who told him to play riddles with her? He clearly knew that she was very concerned about Big Ice Cube's appearance, yet he used this to tease her. It was good enough that she didn't beat him up. He didn't tell the young princess consort that the reason why no one could tell that he was wearing a mask was because it was Lord's true appearance. However, he had disguised it a little and reduced his cultivation by 70%. Therefore, what the young princess consort saw was a concealed brilliance, and only 30% of Lord's handsome face. 30% was enough to topple all living things. If he didn't reduce his cultivation, what kind of brilliance would he have? Kong Ling looked at the two of them walking down the stairs hand in hand, and suddenly felt an inexplicable sense of coincidence. It was as if the two of them were supposed to be walking together. He couldn't help but rub his eyes. It was probably because he hadn't rested well recently that he was seeing things. "Hey, do you think that master and the little young master are a good match?" Kuo Ling appeared out of nowhere with a corn cob in his mouth as he blabbered on. Kong Ling glanced at him and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? Wipe the corn off your mouth. Don't embarrass master." After saying this, Ethereal turned to enter the room and heavily closed the door. Kuo Ling rubbed his nose. He was speaking the truth, so why was this person acting so awkward? At this time, he saw the waiter come up the stairs. Kuo Ling immediately waved his hand at him in an attempt to understand. "Waiter brother, do you also think that my master and the little young master are a good match?" The waiter raised his hand to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. They were both men. How could they be a good match? It couldn't be that they were good men, right? But the person in front of him was anxiously waiting for his reply. The waiter immediately tightened his clothes. These guests were a bit strange. He had to immediately tell the boss that he was sick today and needed to take the day off. Seeing the waiter rolling down the stairs in fear, Kuo Ling was a bit confused. Was he really that terrifying? Ethereal has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. You don't need to take his words to heart. Xiao Su brought her out of the inn and stood on the main street filled with people. He looked forward, and although his voice was as light as usual, it was hard to hide the gentleness in his voice. Chu Qingyan revealed a smile. "I didn't take it to heart. I know that the people by your side don't like me at first, but I'm not a silver note that everyone loves, so how could everyone like me? Moreover, don't you think that conquering people is the most motivating thing?" Her complete lack of care made Xiao Su curve his lips. Although this little fellow was always talking about his imperial grandfather and Ethereal, she was always kind to them in her heart. She was obedient and never really argued with them. This kind of broad-minded person was Xiao Su's person. Xiao Su forgot that he wasn't wearing a mask right now. The gentle smile on his face instantly became the most dazzling scene in the crowd. Because of his faint smile, the endless stream of people slowed down their footsteps. At night, every household hung up lanterns. There were all kinds of lanterns that were beautiful beyond compare. The lanterns that snaked into the distance behind him emitted a dazzling light. It was like a brilliant firework that bloomed behind him. His black hair was tied up high and fell to his shoulders. It was as smooth as flowing water and had a faint luster to it. It was late autumn and the leaves were falling. It was unknown who bumped into the tree, but the golden leaves fell like rain. They fell on the shoulders of the two people and slid down their clothes like butterflies brushing past them. That moment of brilliance was like a falling leaf that entered the lake of people's hearts. It created ripples that spread out endlessly, layer upon layer, fine and dense. The youth's smile was like a spring breeze that blew through people's hearts. 1-2 Flowers. Chapter 205. Chu Qingyan then realized that the people walking past her seemed to have been slowed down. Every step they took seemed to have slowed down, and their gazes seemed to land on Big Ice Cube. She turned her eyes and missed the ripple at the corner of Xiaosu's mouth. However, the gentle light on his body climbed up his black, patternless clothes bit by bit. The light and shadow formed a pattern. Sometimes, the falling leaves would fall, and the pattern would become a graceful butterfly. Sometimes, the wine flag would flutter, and the pattern would become a burning flame. In this world, there was a kind of person that didn't need to be deliberately sculpted or dressed up. Even if it was ordinary coarse hemp clothes or simple wooden hairpins, it couldn't hide their noble appearance. She was a bit dazed as a strange sense of pride rose in her heart. Even if the big ice block was wearing a mask, she still felt that he was the most handsome person in the world. But the surrounding gazes that fell on them didn't have pure admiration. It made her feel a bit uncomfortable, and she couldn't help but frown. "Why do you look unhappy?" Xiaosu noticed her strange mood, and asked with a lowered brow. Chu Qingyan looked up at the person in front of her. His eyes were filled with nobility and his voice and appearance were clear. How could this kind of person not attract attention? "Big Ice Block, I regret having you change your appearance. So many people are staring at you, it really makes me feel uncomfortable," she muttered in a small voice. The bustling streets were bustling with noise and excitement. Even with Xiaosu's exceptional hearing, he was unable to catch her words. He leaned forward and his black hair fell. A gust of night wind blew and his hair brushed past her face. It brought with it a clear ink fragrance. She seemed to see ink and green bamboo spread out in front of her. "What did you say just now?" His voice was as cool as the night wind, but his tone was a bit pampering. She came back to her senses and her face suddenly became embarrassed. She was the one who wanted him to change his appearance, but now she had that kind of thought. If she said it out loud, she would be laughed at by the big ice block for being fickle. She looked at the face close by and gave a light cough. In front of such beauty, she seemed to have been bewitched. "No, nothing. I just wanted to say that this night market seems to be very big. Where are we going?" Chu Qingyan immediately laughed. Xiaosu didn't know what was going through her mind. Instead, he straightened his body. His straight and slender figure stood out among the crowd, but he didn't realize it. "Then let's take a walk. We must return to the inn before 9 o'clock. He held the little fellow's hand and slowly walked into the world of mortals. 11 o'clock? Big Ice Cube really adhered to the teaching method of children to go to bed early and get up early, and he did the same for himself. Alas, since there were still more than 2 hours left, he might as well play to his heart's content. As they had just entered Pingyang City, no one recognized them. Hence, they did not bring a single soldier or guard with them this time. Chu Qingyan saw someone selling steamed buns on the street. She hadn't eaten dinner yet, and was a little hungry. She touched her body and found that she had forgotten to take her purse in a hurry. Sure enough, beauty misled people. Big Ice Cube, I want to eat buns. So, Xiaosu raised an eyebrow and looked at her. Hence, she stretched out her hand to the person beside her. Give me money. Xiaosu smiled when he heard that. He took out a purse from his sleeve and placed it in her hand. Chu Qingyan felt that the purse in her hand was heavy, and her eyes lit up instantly. She had only wanted to find Big Ice Cube to take a few pieces of silver, but she didn't expect him to give her the entire purse. The way Big Ice Cube handed the purse to her was too handsome. Sure enough, she was the one who brought him, and he brought the money. This feeling couldn't be any better. Why are you still in a daze? I don't have any buns on my face. Xiaosu raised his hand and waved it in front of her eyes. Was this little fellow in front of him possessed? Chu Qingyan immediately retracted her gaze and waved the purse at him. Then I'll go buy it. Xiaosu watched as she skipped happily to the bun shop to choose some buns. His gaze couldn't help but soften. Young master, your younger brother is really handsome. The old man who was selling children's toys at the side followed Xiaosu's gaze, and couldn't help but say affectionately. If it was a normal day, he would rarely pay attention to him. But he nodded at this time. He's a bit naughty. Children are all like this. My family's grandson is even more naughty. He's always climbing trees to grab bird eggs and going into the river to catch fish and prawns. He always ends up dirty every time. The old man leaned against the little wooden cart. Although his words were criticizing his grandson, his face was filled with the radiance of affection. Xiao looked at the back figure that was seriously choosing the buns. The light in his eyes was sparkling, and there was an indescribable charm in them. This little fellow is a bit clingy, a bit talkative, and a bit greedy, but everything else is good. The old man laughed. His hand that was stroking his beard paused and he said with a smile, I can see that as an older brother, you really love this little brother. Elder is too kind. This one is just doing his best to let him live a comfortable life without fear. The moment she moved into the prince's residence, their fates were already intertwined. She was brought into the center of the whirlpool by him, and there was too little he could do for her. Young man, this old man can see that you care a lot about this little brother. Don't worry, your efforts will always be rewarded. When your little brother grows up, he'll understand your care and concern. The old man shook his head and smiled. Thank you, elder. Xiao looked up and saw the little figure that was running back in a hurry. It seemed that the little fellow had grown a lot taller in this period of time. Here, this is the red bean bun, meat bun, vegetable bun, bamboo shoot bun. Which one do you want? Chu Qingyan looked at all the buns in front of him as if she was presenting a treasure. At this time, the old man gave a muffled laugh and turned to Xiao. Young man, look at your little child. He's much more sensible than my grandson. He'll give you everything he has first. The corner of Xiao's mouth lifted slightly, a smile in his eyes. At this time, Chu Qingyan noticed the old man standing beside them, and immediately handed the bun in her hand to him. Old grandpa, do you want one too? No, this old man has already eaten dinner. You two brothers can eat. The old man waved his hand. At this time, Xiao picked up the windmill from the old man's stall. Chu Qingyan, pay up. Oh, okay. Chu Qingyan took out some silver from her money pouch and stuffed it into the old man's hand. Old grandpa here. The old man hurriedly lowered his head to give the change, but when he looked up, the figures holding hands had already walked far away. He could only hear the two's conversation carried by the wind. Big Ice Cube, last time you were recognized as father and daughter. This time you're recognized as brother. You've improved. Eat your food properly. Don't talk when you eat. We're already walking on the streets. Don't be so picky when you eat. Big Ice Cube, try this bamboo shoot bun too. It's not bad. Right? It's delicious, right? Sure enough, she was a little clingy, a little talkative, and a little greedy. The old man shook his head and laughed. Chapter 206. This was the first time she was out alone with Big Ice Cube. In the past, they were either accompanied by Gu Rong, Gu Yi, or Hualing and Xining. This was also the first time the two of them were walking on an unfamiliar street. She expressed her feelings to the person beside her, wanting to gain recognition. Unfortunately, Big Ice Cube was too unromantic and only looked at her lightly. Watch where you're going, don't fall. Xiao didn't know why this little fellow's mind was filled with so many emotions. He shook his head. I fell. A 15 or 16-year-old girl in pink walked in front of the two of them. Suddenly, she lost her footing and fell softly in front of them. She called out weakly and slowly fell down with what she thought was her most graceful figure. Chu Qingyan blinked. Why did this person fall down for no reason? Could it be that they met with a scammer? I am miss, why did you fall? A girl dressed as a servant immediately ran forward and squatted down to help her up. However, the two of them fell to the ground again. The pink-clothed girl raised her eyes. Her gaze was soft and teary as she said to Xiao, Young master, my maidservant is weak and can't help me up. Can you lend a hand and help me up? This pretentious voice, coupled with the eyes that were constantly looking at the Big Ice Cube, made Chu Qingyan realize what was going on. So they didn't meet with a scammer, but a flirt. If it was a normal day, Xiao wouldn't even bother with this pair of master and servant. However, there was a crowd at this time, and these two people were blocking their way. Xiao Su turned to look at Chu Qingyan beside him. Chu Qingyan received the message and sighed. She handed the 2 pinwheels in her hands to the person beside her, then stepped forward and asked kindly, "Miss, let me help you up." "Young master, it's not that I don't appreciate your kindness, but I'm afraid you can't help me up." The girl in pink used a handkerchief to cover her face. Her eyes drifted towards Xiao Su from time to time. The more she looked at him, the more her heart raced. This young master was really handsome. He was more masculine than any man she had seen in Pingyang City. The more she looked at him, the more she liked his cold temperament. Chu Qingyan had no choice but to turn around and shrug at Xiao Su. This young lady thinks that she's too heavy for others to help her up. "Cousin, let's let someone as strong as a bull help her up. If we accidentally cause her to fall, it'll be our fault." A smile appeared in Xiao Su's eyes, but his face was serious as he said, "You're right. We should make way for the others. Otherwise, it won't be good if we delay helping this young lady." Chu Qingyan secretly said in her heart, "It seems that this big ice block is also a black-bellied person, but usually does not show it." The girl in pink saw the 2 of them singing the same tune, and then bypassing her to leave. She instantly clenched her fists in anger. She had really shot herself in the foot. If she had obeyed that young master, she could have taken the opportunity to talk to him now. "Miss, the 2 of them have left. What should we do?" The servant asked anxiously. "Let the guards check on the background of the 2 of them. I must see him again." The girl in pink stood up and looked at the handsome young man in black slowly being drowned out by the crowd. Her heart was filled with indignation. She, Lu Fu, had nothing in Pingyang City that she could not get. Chu Qingyan looked at the master and servant behind her and shook her head. This kind of pickup was no longer popular now. These 2 were really a little silly. They were hitting on a stranger on the streets. Were they not afraid that he was a bad guy? At this moment, a few more girls looked at the big ice block with infatuated expressions. Chu Qingyan glanced at the person beside her. She still felt that it was better for the big ice block to wear a mask or a veil hat. It was not illegal to be good-looking, but it was wrong to come out and harm others. Chu Qingyan sternly clarified that it was not because she felt uncomfortable seeing other people staring at the big ice block. "There is a restaurant in front. Do you want to go in and eat?" Xiao Su looked at the spring restaurant in front and asked the person beside him. She had only eaten a few buns tonight. It was possible that she would complain that she was hungry after walking the entire street. Chu Qingyan heard him and looked forward. Her eyes instantly lit up. However, she was not looking at the restaurant, but at the glutinous rice dumpling stall opposite the restaurant. "Big ice block, I want to eat glutinous rice dumplings, sesame glutinous rice dumplings, peanut glutinous rice dumplings." Chu Qingyan tugged at his sleeve and jumped up and down. She knew that the big ice block was of noble birth, and was afraid that he would not be interested in the things sold by these small stalls. "Aren't the Silvertails with you? Do you think I have the right to speak?" Xiao Su teased. Chu Qingyan slapped her head. "Oh right, she actually forgot. The money was with her, so the right to make the decision was with her." After thinking it through, she said proudly, "I can't deny that you have the right to speak, but the decision is in my hands." "Ha ha, hurry up, hurry up. I'm almost drooling." With that, Chu Qingyan could not wait to run over. People came and went, and there was an endless stream of horses and carriages. Xiao Su was worried. He held her hand with one hand, and helped her carry the windmill with the other. He shook his head and laughed as he walked towards the stall. A window of the restaurant opposite the stall happened to be open. 2 large lanterns hung above the stall, illuminating the area around the stall. The person standing by the window immediately saw Chu Qingyan and the young man. Perhaps these 2 people's appearances were too outstanding. When that pair of bloated eyes saw the handsome Xiao Su dressed in black, they immediately widened. It was as if he was a vicious dog that saw a piece of bone. This person's appearance really makes one's heart itch. He could not help but sigh softly. At this time, the person sitting in the private room saw that the honored guest did not respond for a long time. He could not help but stand up and come over. When he saw the infatuated expression on the honored guest's face and the handsome and cold man under the light, he immediately understood. "Lord Lu, have you taken a fancy to that man?" What is Boss Xiao saying? This official is a 7-foot-tall man. How could I take a fancy to a man? Isn't this insulting this official? Lu Ying said righteously. Although he said that, he could not hide the greed in his eyes. Zhao Qing smiled in understanding. This one did not mean that. I just feel that if this person can catch Lord Lu's eye, it would be his fortune. Who doesn't know Lord Lu's identity and status? Many people dream of becoming your subordinate. Hearing this person's compliment, Lu Ying immediately beamed with joy. Boss Xiao really knows how to talk. Then when it's your 60th birthday, this one will send them to your residence to attend the birthday banquet. How about that? Zhao Qing said with a hidden meaning. Lu Ying rubbed his chin and looked at the two people chatting and laughing at the stall. His bloated eyes narrowed. Then this official will not be courteous. The young man beside him is not bad either. I can send him over together. Zhao Qing understood. It seemed that this person was not only into men, but also into women. He smiled insincerely and said, I will definitely not disappoint Lord Lu's expectations. Chapter 207. Boss, 2 bowls of glutinous rice balls, one with peanut filling and one with sesame filling. After ordering, she turned around and asked, Big Ice Cube, what kind of filling do you want? So you ordered those 2 bowls for yourself? Xiao Su did not understand her passion for glutinous rice balls. I'm fine with anything. You have no idea how much I miss the taste of glutinous rice balls. It's fragrant in my mouth and smooth like butter. TSK, 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 my saliva. Boss, another bowl of sesame filling. Chu Qingyan immediately stopped her fantasy and shouted to the boss. Okay, customers, please sit for a while. It will be served to you soon. The boss sang loudly and quickly put the glutinous rice balls into the pot. Chu Qingyan smiled when she heard that, then turned around and pulled Big Ice Cube to find a seat. However, when she saw the slightly dirty table and chairs, she hesitated. It was a little unfair for Big Ice Cube to eat in such a place. As if he did not see the little girl's hesitation, Xiao Su sat down gracefully and poured her a cup of tea. Have a cup of water. You've been running all the way. Seeing that he did not care, Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled mischievously. Okay, thank you, cousin. Xiao Su shook his head helplessly. The little girl was getting better and better at talking. When the steaming glutinous rice balls were served, Chu Qingyan called out to Big Ice Cube, and then eagerly scooped a mouthful of glutinous rice balls into her mouth. Then, Xiao Su saw her slowly frown and spit out the glutinous rice balls. Eat slowly, it's very hot. Chu Qingyan stuck out her tongue, and her eyes were wet like Xiao Wang's. She said pitifully, It's so hot. It's so hot. Xiao Su blew on the glutinous rice balls in the spoon and looked at her. You can't eat hot glutinous rice balls in a hurry. Then he put the glutinous rice balls into his mouth. Chu Qingyan fanned her mouth and asked enviously, Is it good? It's okay. The sesame filling was not too sweet, and the texture was not bad. Xiao Su said to the point. Chu Qingyan's heart itched when she heard that. She waited for the tang yuan to cool down for a while, then immediately scooped a mouthful and put it into her mouth. The moment she bit through the skin, her eyes narrowed into a line with happiness. It's so good. This is even more original than what I've eaten before. There's no preservatives added, so I can eat it at ease. Her intoxicated expression was easily satisfied. Xiao Su's hand that was holding the spoon paused. It's just a bowl of glutinous rice balls. Is it worth it for you to be so emotional? If others heard this, they would think that I have mistreated you. Hee, this is called contentment. Chu Qingyan stirred the glutinous rice balls in her bowl, and smiled from the bottom of her heart. Of course Big Ice Cube treats me very well. No one will think that way. Don't worry. Xiao Su shook his head and let her be. Xiao Su had always been an elegant and fast eater. By the time he finished 1 bowl, the little foodie opposite him had already finished 2 bowls. Chu Qingyan licked the corner of her mouth and immediately stretched out her hand. Boss, 2 more bowls. Xiao Su raised his hand. No need, this is enough. Big Ice Cube, I'm not full yet. Chu Qingyan protested. Your protest is invalid. Too much is as bad as not enough. You'll have a stomachache at night if you eat so much glutinous rice. Xiao Su heartlessly rejected her request. Cheapskate, drink cold water. Chu Qingyan muttered softly. It was so quiet that her small voice could not escape his ears. However, he did not argue with her. He stood up and waited for her to pay before leaving. Chu Qingyan, who had put down the money, suddenly came back to her senses. Did Big Ice Cube want her to pay when he gave her the money pouch? Looking at the relaxed Big Ice Cube, Chu Qingyan was even more certain of this thought. He knew how to order people around. Aha! Xiao Su did not know what she was thinking. He held her hand and slowly walked towards the downtown area. Big Ice Cube, why are there so many begging commoners there? When they walked to the side of an alley, Chu Qingyan was surprised by the beggars lying in the alley. When she finished speaking, those beggars immediately came to her and surrounded the two of them. They stretched out their hands and held out their broken bowls as they begged. "Two young masters, please give us some money. We haven't eaten for several days. Please." All of them were sallow and emaciated. Their hair was messy and their faces were dirty. Their clothes were tattered and some of them were almost naked. Chu Qingyan looked at the person beside her. "The money is with you. You decide." Xiao Su did not look at her and knew what she was thinking. Chu Qingyan nodded and took out the money pouch. She took out the money and distributed it. "Little young master is a good person. Thank you. We can finally have a meal. Guanyin Bodhisattva, bless us. Thank you." The beggars who received the money thanked her. Chu Qingyan was about to respond when she saw the other beggars rushing over. Chu Qingyan was scared out of her wits. She immediately grabbed the hand of the person beside her and ran in another direction in a panic. Only when she shook off the people behind her did she let out a sigh of relief. She panted as she looked at the person whose face was not red. She could not help but ask, "Why do you look like a normal person?" "Diligent training. You can do it too," Xiao Su replied leisurely. Chu Qingyan sighed. She did not want to argue with him on this issue. Thinking back to the terrifying beggar army just now, she realized that the pitiful amount of money she had was just a drop in the bucket to them. She could not help but ask, "Big Ice Block, Pingyang City is prosperous. It's normal to have beggars. But why are there so many of them?" Basically, every alley was filled with beggars, not to mention those beggars on the streets. These people should be from Qi County. Xiao Su lowered his head and helped her tidy up her clothes that were messed up from running. He looked up and saw her puzzled expression. He explained, "The people in Qi County like to embroider a Chinese rose on their waists. That's the custom of their place. It has been going on for hundreds of years." Chu Qingyan was suddenly enlightened. She did not notice it just now. She did not expect Big Ice Block to be so observant and notice it so quickly. But how knowledgeable must he be to be able to know the customs of a small county by heart? Qi County is one of the 7 counties in the 3 districts under Lu Ying's jurisdiction. However, there was a flood a few years ago and Qi County was flooded. The imperial court gave out disaster relief money, which was enough for the people affected by the disaster to survive. But these people appeared here. There must be something fishy going on. Xiao Su frowned. He thought of the secret report he had received previously, and seemed to have thought of something. Chu Qingyan also recalled the information on the paper she had seen previously. She could not help but think of the missing disaster relief money. At this moment, Chu Qingyan felt the body of the person beside her suddenly tense up. "What's wrong?" "We're being followed," Xiao Su said in a voice that only the two of them could hear when he saw the figure hiding in the dark. Chu Qingyan immediately looked around. "Why are we being followed? What should we do? We don't know who the other party is. Don't look around. Pretend that nothing happened and follow me." Xiao Su held her hand and said in a clear and calm voice, "Okay." Chapter 208. As soon as the two of them left, a few men dressed as page boys appeared at the spot where they were standing. They scratched their heads and looked around. "Where are they? I saw them here. How did they disappear in the blink of an eye? That's strange." Pageboy A scratched his head and said in confusion, "Yes, our master is really strange. Why did he ask us to capture these two people?" Pageboy B asked. Pageboy C smiled a little wretchedly. Don't you know? Our master is offering Buddha with borrowed flowers. Who doesn't know about our master's relationship with Governor Liu? It's rumored that Governor Liu likes men. Governor Liu was the one who took a fancy to these two young men. So you know. I see. But what if we lose them? Pageboy A was anxious. Look for them again. Otherwise, we won't be able to report back, and we'll be in deep trouble. Pageboy B said immediately. Yes, yes, yes. Quickly go and look for them. Even if you have to turn the entire Pingyang city upside down, you must find them. Pageboy C rolled up his sleeves and said to the people beside him. Thus, the group walked away. The two people who were standing behind the tree trunk then walked out. I didn't expect that we would be targeted after walking for a while. Chu Qingyan sneered. It was unbelievable. This Governor Liu was actually a pervert who liked both young and old. Obviously, Xiao was also a little surprised. At this moment, his expression was ugly. He was prepared to go ahead and investigate, but he was worried about leaving the little fellow alone. But just as he was thinking, a curious voice came from beside him. Big ice block. How about we follow those people? Xiao lowered his eyebrows and said helplessly, What are you thinking of now? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. How about it? She blinked at him, unable to hide her excitement at this moment. Let's go. Actually, he had intended to do so, but he was worried about the little fellow. Now that she was so excited, he nodded. Hey, where did they go? Why can't we find them? Pageboy A looked around perplexed. That's right. How are we going to report back to our master later? Wait, are those two people? Pageboy C pointed in a direction and tugged at the people beside him excitedly. The few of them immediately looked over and saw two people, one big and one small, walking towards a small alley. The servants looked at each other and thought, the heavens are really helping us. They quickly outflanked them. When the two of them walked into the alley, they saw two pageboys with bad intentions. And were about to turn and leave, they saw 3 or 4 pageboys similarly dressed. Two young masters. My master would like to invite the two of you into the mansion as guests. What do the two of you think? Servant third said with a smile, trying to be polite before resorting to force. However, it was difficult to conceal the evasiveness in his words. Chu Qingyan immediately waved her hand, looking frightened. We're new here and don't know your master. Moreover, my mother said that we should be careful when we're outside. It's not safe to leave with strangers. Pageboy A spat. Damn it, do you know who our master is? He's the richest man in Pingyang City. People call him Boss Xiao. He owns dozens of shops and his business is spread all over the world. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Hearing this, Xiao glanced at these manservants. When the manservants saw this silent and graceful man suddenly raise his head and glance at them with a cold expression, they suddenly felt a chill run down their spines and shivered. But Xiao quickly retracted his gaze. The pageboys remembered that they outnumbered him and became lively again. Just one sentence. Do you want to leave on your own? Or do we have to kidnap you? If you don't want to leave, you still have to leave. Pageboy B flashed 2 hemp ropes as thick as his wrists and waved them in front of the two of them. Chu Qingyan wanted to retort, but the person holding her hand suddenly squeezed her palm. She immediately understood and put on a panicked expression. She said weakly, Don't kidnap us. We'll leave on our own, leave on our own. If you fall into that lord's hands, TSK, 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 I can't imagine it. Ha ha ha. Servant A pointed at Chu Qingyan and laughed out loud. Everyone had a tacit understanding when they heard his words, and an indescribable sense of mockery appeared on their faces. As soon as Servant A finished speaking, he felt a cold gaze fall on him. He immediately stopped laughing and looked in Xiao direction. However, he saw that Xiao was looking down and wasn't looking at him. He immediately raised his hand. To avoid any more trouble, let's go. Then, everyone surrounded the two of them, afraid that they would take the opportunity to slip away. They pushed the two of them to leave quickly. Sensing the sudden coldness from the people beside her, Chu Qingyan laughed softly. These people were laughing so happily. She guessed that when they cried it would be very ugly. The two of them left with them without saying a word. Pageboy B looked at the two of them. One of them was calm and collected with a leisurely expression. The other's eyes were full of curiosity. He felt a little strange. I say, why don't these two people look like they were kidnapped? They look like they were going on a sightseeing tour? Why do you care so much? Master asked us to bring them back. We just need to complete the task. Now you just need to think about where to go after you get Master's reward. Page Boise rolled his eyes at him, feeling that his long-winded nagging was too annoying. Page Boye said impatiently, "Don't worry. These two people have nothing to do with us once they are in Master's hands. It's their good fortune to be played to death or crippled." Played to death or crippled? Page Boy B's eyes widened in fright. Page Boye chuckled. You just entered the residence not long ago. Of course you don't know some secrets. Our master and that lord have known each other for a long time. The servants in our residence more or less know about that lord's hobbies. Do you know why you were able to enter the residence before? Why? Page Boy B suddenly had a bad premonition. That's because the servant in your position, Little Six, was taken away by that lord a few days ago. Our master turned a blind eye and didn't pursue the matter. Page Boy A spat and continued. I heard that yesterday, someone was wrapped up from the back door of that lord's house and thrown outside. Some busybodies went to take a look and found that the person was already on the verge of death. It was that servant in our residence, Little Six. Waiter B sucked in a breath of cold air. This was too terrifying. Page Boise glanced at Chu Qingyan and Little Six and said regretfully, how pitiful. Perhaps we will see them thrown out in 2 days. Don't worry about it. We're almost at the residence. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. These people were sneaking around, worried that they would be heard, but their voices were so loud that it was impossible not to listen. This Luing was really filthy, bullying men and tyrannizing women, doing such inhumane things. Chapter 209. We're here. Chu Qingyan raised her head. In front of her was really the back door of a mansion. However, even a small back door could not hide its extravagance and splendor. It could be seen that these people were right. The old master they were referring to was one of the wealthiest merchants in Pingyang City. It was located in a bustling area, had a big gate and a big courtyard, and all the guards were tall and strong. Chu Qingyan felt that the big block of ice along the way was terrifyingly gloomy. Moreover, his gaze seemed to land on those manservants, as if he wanted to tear them apart. Xiao looked at these people coldly. If not for the fact that he was going to follow the vine to get the melon, these people who were polluting the little fellow's ears with their filthy mouths would have lost their tongues long ago. These people were completely unaware that they had just escaped a calamity. They entered the door excitedly and said, hand them over to the butler and we'll be done. They entered the back door excitedly. Someone had already gone to report to the butler of the mansion. After waiting for a long time, the butler finally arrived, yawning. Manservant A immediately went forward and said eagerly, Butler Su, we've brought them here. Butler Su looked at the two people in the courtyard under the dim yellow light of the firelight. The tall one was elegant, while the small one had delicate features. They were really the kind of people who could not be found in Pingyang City. The pity in his heart disappeared in a flash. He estimated that the value of these two people could be exchanged for another big deal for the old master. Hence, Butler Su did not delay any further. Yes. It's already so late and the old master has already gone to bed. Take them to the woodshed and wait for the old master to wake up tomorrow. Then Butler Su the reward. Manservant B rubbed his hands and asked mischievously. Butler Su nodded. You've done well this time. Tomorrow, go to the accounts room to collect your reward. Thank you, Butler Su. The manservants laughed heartily, and then took the two of them to the woodshed. Behave yourselves. Manservant A warned them before locking up the woodshed. After the noise outside had gone away, Chu Qingyan looked around the messy woodshed and said with some disappointment, I thought we would at least be treated as a gift, but I didn't expect it to only be a small woodshed. Chu Qingyan mumbled to herself as she turned around. The moonlight shone down on the person in front of her. His features were exquisite, and every detail was perfect. Chu Qingyan sighed softly as she turned to look at her surroundings, thinking about how she was going to get through the night. Xiao Su comforted her. We'll be able to go back in a few days. Big Ice Cube, do you think Hualing and the others will be anxious because they can't find us? Only now did she remember this matter. I've already made a mark, so they will receive the news. Xiao Su found a place and sat down without any hesitation. Chu Qingyan saw him sit down and was stunned. When the big ice cube was in the palace, even if the things prepared by the servants weren't the most expensive, they would still be meticulous down to the smallest detail. Once there was a stain on the clothes, it would be changed without any explanation. The room would be spotless without any impurities. But now she saw him casually sit down without caring about the dust on the ground or the cobwebs on his head. She couldn't help but be shocked in her heart. Perhaps seeing the surprise on her little face, Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. It's an emergency, so there's no need to make such a big fuss. Big Ice Cube, I always thought you were obsessed with cleanliness. Chu Qingyan put away the surprise on her face. She squatted down in front of him and teased him with a smile. Xiao Su's lips curled up slightly. When you were on the battlefield, you couldn't be obsessed with cleanliness even if you wanted to. She suddenly remembered that the scripture had told her that Big Ice Cube had spent the longest time outside. For example, in the battlefield, or in his sect, or in many difficult environments. To be able to become what he was today and not grow up crooked, he was already considered to have a strong will. Outside, he was a general on the battlefield. Living with the soldiers and sleeping with the horses was a common matter. Back then, he was the first prince of a country, the King of England. He ate and dressed according to the standards of the prince, the lord. So this was the so-called in one's position, one's living style. Big Ice Cube, is it tiring to train or fight outside? After asking this, she felt that her question was actually nonsense. How could it not be tiring outside? For the country, danger lurked everywhere, life and death were unpredictable, and she was always on edge. She gave a sigh. She was worried about her IQ and wanted to change the topic. But she heard the sound of flowing water coming from above her head. No, if you live a meaningful life, you won't be tired. It's just that I'm willing and happy. She looked up in surprise and saw the person in front of her. His expression was calm and his gaze was still cold. She could feel that what he said just now was not heroic words for the country and the people. He really took the country's safety as his daily responsibility and integrated it into his life. It's just that he's willing and happy? Who in this world could say these words so calmly? Why should I avoid it because of fortune or misfortune? She seemed to be able to really understand the meaning of this sentence. The Big Ice Cube did not put the country on his shoulders, but in his heart. Such a Big Ice Cube who was disputed by the world, ostracized by his relatives, and misunderstood by the people, made her feel distressed. For the world, for the country, for the people, the result was like this. But he had never given up the responsibility in his heart. Otherwise, there was no need for him to appear here. He only needed to obediently search for oars. But he still came. She also sat down on the ground like him. She supported her chin with both hands and said with a solemn expression, "In the future, I will accompany you to protect your country and the world." Xiao Su's eyes fell on the little fellow in front of him. The person who usually talked and laughed was now serious. In order to increase his trust in her, she even tried to put on a serious face. He felt that it was a little funny, but it was not funny. It was as if the string in the depths of his heart was gently touched by these words. You're still young. You're still young and your shoulders are not thick enough. You can't take on too much responsibility. You're still young and your scheming is not deep enough. You can't avoid too many schemes. You're still young and your willpower is not firm enough. You can't avoid too many grudges and disputes. The road to growth is too long. You'd better grow up under my wings. I'll do my best to protect your safety. This is the only thing I can do for you in this world. I'm not young. Don't look down on me. She was so serious about her oath, but she was treated like this. She could not accept it. The night of late autumn and early winter was already cold. He had internal energy to protect his body, but she was already shivering from the cold. Xiao Su reached out and lifted her from the cold ground and placed her in his arms. Okay. You're very big. I think highly of you, okay? Why did these words sound so awkward? Once in his arms, Chu Qingyan felt that she was suddenly surrounded by warmth. The cold on her body was dispelled a lot. The big ice cube's chest was warm and reliable, making her sigh comfortably. Actually, the big ice cube was right. Compared to him, she was indeed very small. His arms were very big, just enough to hold the small her. Chapter 210. Big Ice Cube. How can Luing be so daring? He's bullying people right under the emperor's nose. Isn't he afraid of being reported? Her hands and feet were already warm and not as cold as before. Chu Qingyan began to use her brain and asked the question that she did not understand. Xiao Su turned to look at the skylight. His eyes were deep and seemed to be covered by a thin layer of fog. No one could tell what he was thinking. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Moreover, the Lu family since the previous generation has already spread throughout Sichuan. Their connections are intertwined. It can be said that a slight move in one part will affect the whole situation. Therefore, no one in the imperial court will easily touch them. Then this time, will you handle it impartially? She understood that the Lu family was the Empress Dowager's maternal relatives. When the retired emperor was in charge of the imperial court, in order to protect his maternal relatives, or in other words, to become his strong support in the imperial harem, he had to make his maternal relatives strong enough that no one dared to touch them. Only then could he have a foothold. Then this time, Luing was in the hands of the Big Ice Cube. To the Big Ice Cube, this was actually a tricky matter. It was very likely that he would attract a lot of trouble. Just as he said, a slight move in one part will affect the whole situation. I am the Prince of Sichuan. I have a responsibility to not allow such disloyal, unfilial people to oppress the people. His tone was calm but firm. Big Ice Cube, good job. Chu Qingyan could not help but give him a thumbs up. Xiao Su raised his hand and patted her head, but the corner of his mouth leaked out an extremely shallow sigh. Chu Qingyan did not notice that the person above her had a faint expression of pain after saying those words. It wasn't until not long later when she learned the truth that she would understand how much effort he had expended to say those words that day. When the moonlight was dim and the woodshed was cold, when that broad shoulder had supported her with warmth, the words he had said had taken a great deal of effort. Perhaps because the embrace was too warm, she felt a trace of tiredness. But she still forced herself to stay awake and smiled at the person in front of her. Actually, Big Ice Cube, I feel that whether you wear a mask or not, I think you are very good. Appearance may be important to a person, but in my eyes, no matter how you look, no matter how repulsive or ugly you are, in my heart, you are very important. You are as important as my father and mother. Xiao Su suddenly tightened his fingers. Because of her words, Gao Shan's icy cold eyes slightly cracked. He did not expect that she would suddenly say these words. He was a little stunned and a little helpless. Chu Qingyan did not notice the change in his expression. As if she was immersed in her own world, she slowly and softly continued to speak. Some people can clearly use their appearance, but they use their strength to eat. And some people can clearly rely on nothing to run rampant in the world, but they rely on their own strength. Big Ice Cube, you have a status that everyone envies. You have the capital to be proud, but you have never truly cared about it. You are willing to use your own strength to live your own life. You are already very powerful. Only a crab can run rampant in the world. Xiao Su smiled. He knew that she was comforting him. His heart felt warm, and the hand that was patting her head loosened a little. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Being a crab is also pretty good. Whoever dares to block the road, I will reward them with 2 pincers. So overbearing, be careful that you don't attract resentment. He was amused by her childish words and chuckled. When Chu Qingyan heard this laughter, she felt as if she could hear the hazy sound of a lotus pond. A gentle breeze blew away the lotus leaves, revealing the budding lotus, and then the sound of petals quietly blooming. It was as light as celestial music, as if spring water was flowing from the heavens. Chu Qingyan flipped over and stood up. She only had time to catch the curve of his lips as she murmured, Big Ice Cube, I think I heard you laugh. Xiao Su recovered his cold appearance and flatly denied. You heard wrong. Impossible. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. She felt that the big ice cube was shy and refused to admit it. Thus, she imitated those hooligans who teased people and said to him with bad intentions, Girl, come, smile for this master. Xiao Su's face darkened. You don't want to? Then this master will give you a smile. Chu Qingyan leaned forward, blinked her large eyes, and threw him a smiling glance. Xiao Su's face darkened even more. He pulled her into his embrace. Are you itching for a beating? Learn well for 3 years, learn bad for 3 days. Next time, if you learn this, be careful that I will punish you by not allowing you to eat snacks. All right, I was wrong. The person who was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws earlier had already become listless. She pitifully tugged at his clothes and weakly said. Xiao Su coldly snorted when he heard this, and was unwilling to pay attention to her. Chu Qingyan knew that the big ice cube would not be angry because of this matter. She found a comfortable position in his embrace, and then raised her head. At this moment, she could only see the big ice cube's jade-like beautiful jaw. In the modern era, many people use the beautiful Cape of Good Hope and the scenery in landscape paintings to describe a person's exquisite jaw. At this moment, she felt that this description was really appropriate, because at this moment, the big ice cube's perfect jaw was simply like this. She blinked her eyes and suddenly smiled. Actually, whether her big ice cube was magnificent and dazzling after changing his appearance or wearing a mask, to her, it was not important. Stunning for a moment, but people would accompany her for a lifetime. Having a beauty's skin, it was better to have a beauty's bones. So what if you have a beauty's skin but no heart? Xiao Su sensed her bold gaze and lightly sighed. He found that recently his dignity seemed to have been challenged. This little fellow was becoming more and more afraid of him. Just as he was about to urge her to sleep, he heard her suddenly open her mouth, and his fingers immediately tightened. Big Ice Cube, in the future, if you don't want to change your appearance, then wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, then reveal your true appearance. No matter what you look like, Qingyan will never leave you. Qingyan is not a superficial person. Everyone loves beauty, but Qingyan cares more about whether or not a person is good inside, and whether or not they are trustworthy. She would not dislike them, would not abandon them, and would not give them up. This is me, Chu Qingyan, when I care about a person. Xiao Su was stunned for a moment. When he came back to his senses and lowered his head to say something, his chest tightened, and there was the sound of light breathing. He revealed a faint smile and took off his coat, covering her body. He gathered the little fellow in his embrace, and let her come closer to him, dispelling the cold air of the night. After doing this, he lowered his head. The moonlight shined on his face, making it look gentle. It spread into the corners of his eyes, and his slightly raised eyebrows were filled with gentleness and love. If it was a normal day, Hualing and the others would have dug their eyes out if they saw this. How could their powerful and indestructible lord reveal such a gentle side? Xiao Su looked at the quiet little face in his embrace that had a faint glow to it under the faint moonlight, and his heart was at peace. Even if he had won battle after battle and received title after title, he had never been as satisfied as he was now. Or it could be said that his heart was at peace. The little fellow's appearance seemed to make up for the hole in his heart that had been burned by the fire all these years. Little fellow, you don't need to accompany my country. You just need to grow up healthily, and that is enough. I don't know how long I can accompany you. But no matter how long it is, I will not let you suffer any grievances. Happiness and good health, that is my only request for you. Chapter 211. It was too late at night, and the surroundings were too quiet. So much so that it was easy to let go, and recall many things that had been buried in the depths of one's memory for a long time. Perhaps sentimental, perhaps lonely, perhaps sorrowful. But the current him, watching all of this, seemed to have become a spectator, and it did not cause any ripples in his heart. Because those emotions that had been difficult to get rid of for many years had already dissipated after the little fellow said those words. It was too tiring to bear it alone. But when someone stood up and told you, "I'll taste the sweetness with you, and bear the bitterness with you," the knot in your heart suddenly did not matter so much. Xiao Su's hands tightened, letting her sleep peacefully in his arms. Little fellow, in the future, how will you make me part with you? In the end, he could only sigh softly. The next day, when the sky was bright, Chu Qingyan's eyes were a little numb from the light shining down from the skylight, and she could not help but slowly open her eyes. When she stretched, she touched the coat on her body, and knew that it was taken off by Big Ice Cube last night to put it on her. She could not help but raise her head to look around for traces of him. At a glance, she saw that his back was facing her, standing with his hands behind his back, and she did not know what he was thinking. She climbed up, shook the clothes, and then walked in front of him. Big Ice Cube, the morning dew is heavy, put on the clothes first, be careful not to catch a cold. Xiao Su nodded, took the clothes in her hands, and then said to her, someone's coming. Chu Qingyan immediately looked outside the door vigilantly. Her hearing was not as good as Big Ice Cube's, but after his reminder, she focused and held her breath, but also felt that the footsteps were gradually approaching. A moment later, the woodshed's door was opened, and a few figures walked in with their backs against the light. When those people walked out of the light, Chu Qingyan saw that the leader was a man in his 40s or 50s, whose hands and neck were full of gold necklaces, gold rings, and gold bracelets. Although he was not fat and was very tall, with these heavy gold chains hanging on his body, he looked a lot thicker. Chu Qingyan could not see clearly what the person in front of her looked like, because the gold light shone on his body, making her mistakenly think that it was a golden Buddha statue. In fact, it was the image of a nouveau riche. He was afraid that others wouldn't know that he was rich, so he decorated himself with all the things that could show that he was rich. Chu Qingyan did not expect that the person who kidnapped them would look like this. The scene was too beautiful for her to look at. Just as Chu Qingyan was sizing up this person, Zhao Qing was also sizing them up discreetly. Last night he had only caught a glimpse at the inn, and it was too late at night, so he could only see a rough outline. Now that he saw it, even Zhao Qing, who had seen all kinds of people, could not help but be stunned. Gentle gentleman, outstanding charm, childish and beautiful face. That Lu Ying's eyes were really sharp. With just a glance he saw these two top-notch beauties. Young masters, I'm Zhao Qing, a merchant in Pingyang City. I brought the two of you to my residence last night, but it was too late, and I didn't have the time to entertain you. Please forgive me. Zhao Qing pretended that he did not know anything about the two of them sleeping in the woodshed last night, and said politely. Chu Qingyan had a new understanding of this Zhao Qing. The appearance of a nouveau riche, the attitude of a scholar, the combination of vulgarity and elegance was simply breathtaking. She could not stand such a mixture of styles. She'd better let Big Ice Cube entertain them. Hence, she pretended to be afraid and hid behind him. How could Xiao Su not know what she was thinking? He smirked and looked at Zhao Qing. It's our first time here, and we're not familiar with this place. We're not related to you, boss. May I know why you're looking for us? They had just arrived in Pingyang City, and looked like they were just passing by. Zhao Qing immediately calculated in his heart. If that was the case, it would not matter if anything happened to them in Pingyang City. Anyway, no one would pursue the matter to him. Hence, Zhao Qing revealed the sly smile of a merchant. Young masters, how should I address you? I'm Xiao Su. This is my cousin, Chu Qingyan. Xiao Su did not mind that Zhao Qing had deliberately changed the topic and replied smoothly. Good names. Zhao Qing clapped his hands and smiled. Then he said to the two people in front of him, I feel that I hit it off with you two brothers. Why don't we be friends? Chu Qingyan could not help but want to roll her eyes. Did he really think that they were inexperienced young masters who could be fooled with just a few words? He was simply too naive, all right? Everyone is a friend. Thank you for thinking so highly of us, Boss Xiao. Xiao Su replied methodically, as if he did not feel that Zhao Qing was trying to coax them. A few black lines appeared on Chu Qingyan's forehead. Big Ice Cube, can you not play along with him like this? All right, then you can stay in my residence for the next 2 days. The residence has been quiet recently. It's just nice that you're here. If you have any requests now, feel free to state them. I'll satisfy them as long as it's within my means. Zhao Qing said generously when he heard this, looking very hospitable. Then get us a clean room first. Although this place is a little big, I'm still not used to sleeping with so many rats and ants at night. Chu Qingyan could not help but speak up. She spoke with a straight face, as if they were not rats and ants who had slept with them last night. Zhao Qing could not maintain the smile on his face. He smiled embarrassedly and immediately got someone to arrange a room. Little young master, is there anything else you need? Chu Qingyan thought for a while and said awkwardly, I'm a little picky when it comes to food. Zhao Qing waved his hand when he heard this. It's fine. It's nothing. Just tell me what you need. Alright, I like Boss Zhao's personality. I won't stand on ceremony then. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin and said slowly, I can't eat things that are too sweet, but I can't do without it. I don't like to eat things that are too salty, but I can't do without it. Every dish must at least have a spicy flavor, but I can't eat chili. Every meal must at least have something that flies in the sky, crawls on the ground, or swims in the water. Otherwise, I won't be able to eat. Chu Qingyan blurted out. She then looked at Zhao Qing apologetically. I'm a troublesome person. But Boss Xiao is a good person, so I won't treat you as an outsider. No. It's my honor. Zhao Qing wiped the sweat on his forehead. This person was not picky at all. She was just finding trouble for him. After Chu Qingyan and Zhao Qing were taken away, Zhao Qing's smiling face immediately turned cold. Get someone to investigate the identities of these two people. Also, serve them well for the next 2 days. But don't forget to add some seasoning to their meals. I want them to have the strength to walk in, but not the strength to escape. I don't want anything to happen to the birthday banquet in 2 days. Yes. The person beside him immediately responded. These two people were a little strange. They were not afraid, nor were they noisy. It was as if they were really here as guests. Zhao Qing had lived for half his life, but he had never seen a kidnapping situation where they could wait peacefully for the mastermind to appear. He felt a little uneasy. Chapter 212. After being brought into a clean and tidy room, Chu Qingyan glanced at the furnishings inside and chuckled. They are indeed rich and imposing. These must be expensive. When the page boy who led the two of them heard this, he immediately raised his chin and looked at them as if they were country bumpkins entering the city. Both of you may look and talk, but be careful not to damage the things inside. Otherwise, even if you sell yourself, you won't be able to pay for it. With that, the page boy left with his head held high. Chu Qingyan rubbed her chin and sneered. Isn't this called a tiger that is bullied by dogs? Xiao Su sighed. You should be thankful that you don't bully others. Chu Qingyan immediately frowned. She was not so fierce. She was clearly a weak woman, alright? After being tormented for an entire night and morning, her stomach was already empty. At this moment, the door was pushed open and the people outside came in one by one with plates. Steaming hot dishes were placed on the table one by one. Chu Qingyan smacked her lips. The people in Zhao Qing's residence were really efficient. It had not even been an hour, and they had already prepared everything for her. Sweet and sour pork ribs, barbecued pigeon, small whitefish amaranth soup, lotus seed chicken soup. Everything that crawled on the ground, flew in the sky, swam in the water, sweet, salty, spicy and not so spicy were included. Chu Qingyan thought to herself. Zhao Qing had spent so much effort to keep them in the Zhao residence because he wanted to present them to Lu Ying as a birthday gift. It was obvious that Zhao Qing was preparing to collude with Lu Ying. Last night, she had already heard from the servants that the two of them had a close relationship. There was no need for him to curry favor with Lu Ying. It could only be said that Zhao Qing wanted to gain more benefits through Lu Ying. However, she would only have the energy to think after eating. She placed the chopsticks on the table and called out, Big Ice Cube, it's time to eat. Xiao Su heard her and walked over. He glanced at the dishes on the table and frowned. Then he lowered his eyes and looked at the windowsill. He suddenly understood. Chu Qingyan saw him standing there, and not eating. She could not help but ask, You won't be full just by looking. Here, I'll give you a pair of chopsticks. Chu Qingyan smiled and placed the chopsticks in his hand. However, he grabbed her fingers. Just as she was puzzled, she heard Big Ice Cube's voice transmission. Don't touch these dishes. There's a problem. Chu Qingyan's expression suddenly turned serious as she looked at the delicious food. Then, she followed Big Ice Cube's gaze, and saw a head peeping at them from the windowsill. She immediately understood. She chuckled and casually picked up a drumstick. She deliberately raised her voice and said, "What kind of drumstick is this? The skin is not crispy, and the meat is not delicious. Even if you feed it to a dog, it won't eat it. Come. Out. Done." And, after confirming that the servant had disappeared, Chu Qingyan asked softly, "What do you think is in it?" "It's nothing more than an anesthetic that makes people lose their strength." Xiao Su took out a bottle of medicine from his arms. He poured out one of the pills and handed it to her. "This is the antidote to ordinary drugs developed by Ethereal." Chu Qingyan took it without any suspicion. Then she asked curiously, "Big Ice Cube, how did you know that this dish was drugged?" Xiao Su sat down on the chair and said indifferently, "The request you made just now was almost harsh, but Zhao Qing readily agreed. This is one of the reasons. Secondly, these dishes have a faint fragrance. This is the smell of the soul-enchanting fragrance." Chu Qingyan heard this and immediately leaned over to smell the food on the table. However, in the end, she only smelled the aroma of the food. She couldn't distinguish the fragrance at all. "You can't smell it. When I was practicing martial arts, identifying ordinary drugs and poisons was one of the courses." Xiao Su saw her sniffing here and there like a puppy. He couldn't help but interrupt her. "Eat quickly. Stop sniffing." Chu Qingyan retracted her body. Her face was full of anger. This Xiao Qing is really a scheming businessman. Actually, he was already suspicious this morning. In order to make sure nothing goes wrong, he came up with this plan. Xiao Su said calmly. He picked up a piece of pork rib for her. Chu Qingyan nodded. At this time, she was already attracted by the aroma of the food, and began to eat heartily. In the Zhao family hall, Zhao Qing drank tea and asked casually, "Those dishes, did they touch them?" The servant reported, "Master, those two people have already eaten the food. This servant saw them go to bed after eating. It's estimated that it's working." "Good, you continue to watch. If there's any movement, come and report." Yes. Very quickly it was nighttime. Chu Qingyan was just about to rest when she heard a light knock on the window. 3 long knocks, 2 short knocks and another one. She immediately got up. Xiao Su had already walked to the window and opened it. The person outside flipped over and came in. "Master, young master." A cheerful voice followed. "Hualing." Chu Qingyan jumped off the bed. She didn't expect that the person who came was him. Hualing smiled at her, then said to his master, "Master, this subordinate received your mark last night and followed the path to find you. It's just that I didn't come in rashly last night. Today, after finding out more, I immediately rushed over. And this subordinate received news that Zhao Qing wanted to use Luing to get in touch with the Salt Patrol Imperial Censor of Huai and get salt in advance." Sure enough, it was as he expected. Xiao Su's eyes turned cold. He picked up the dried paper on the table and handed it to him. "This is what I wrote down today. Go back and do according to it." After Hualing took it, he glanced over it before folding it and putting it away in his clothes. "This subordinate will seriously carry out the orders. Master, please be assured." Xiao Su nodded. He always trusted his subordinates. After Hualing finished his business, he turned around and took out a small cloth bag from his chest. He handed it to the young princess consort. "This is what the old man had this subordinate bring to satisfy your cravings." Chu Qingyan was a bit surprised. After taking it, she opened it and found that it was freshly baked pastries. She couldn't help but be happy. This retired emperor still missed her quite a bit, actually remembering that she liked mung bean cakes. Just as she put one in her mouth, she heard Hualing continue. The old man said, "1 mung bean cake in exchange for 1 plate of pastries." What? Asking for a sky-high price. Bargaining on the ground, right? This plan was truly well thought out. Xiao Su and Hualing saw her little face scrunch up like a chrysanthemum, and couldn't help looking away. When it came to food, the retired emperor was very shrewd. Chu Qingyan had no choice but to suffer in silence. Time flew by and in the blink of an eye, It was the day of Lu Ying's birthday banquet. The Xiao family's servants carried out the unconscious Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan from the room. They placed the two of them into two wooden boxes. There were several holes in the wooden boxes to prevent the people inside from suffocating to death. Zhao Qing looked at the wooden boxes tied with red ribbons in satisfaction. According to the amount of medicine they had taken in the past 2 days, they were already unconscious. Zhao Qing revealed a devious smile and then gave the order. Go to the Lu Manor. Chapter 213. The bustling Lu Manor was currently decorated with lanterns, and there was an endless stream of people at the entrance. Several manservants were outside carrying gifts for the guests as they led them into the manor. Zhao Qing looked at the two large chests behind him and revealed a sly smile. He waved his hand, and a group of people entered the Lu Manor. Not long after Zhao Qing went in, the retired emperor in a luxurious robe with Hualing, Turan, and the other attendants behind him, swaying to the entrance of the Lu Manor. The housekeeper outside saw that this group of people was unfamiliar and stopped them. Honored guest, please show your invitation. The retired emperor looked down and his face was filled with disdain. Old man, I am very familiar with your Lord Lu. Are you new and have not seen this old man before? This honored guest is correct. This old servant has indeed just entered the Lu Manor. But no matter who comes, you need to show your invitation before you can enter. This is a rule that cannot be broken. The Lu Manor's housekeeper said in a strict manner. The retired emperor did not argue with him as he waved his hand behind him. Hualing immediately handed over a fiery red invitation. The Lu Manor's housekeeper took it and looked at it before bowing to let them in. After entering the Lu Manor, Hualing giggled as he said, Old man, didn't you say you stayed here for a while before? Why didn't anyone recognize you? The retired emperor looked at him. The Lu Manor has changed servants again, so it's normal that they don't recognize this old man. I say, have you been with that Yin girl for too long, so you've learned how to joke with your master? Hualing immediately shook his head and fell silent. Turan rolled his eyes at him. He kicked an iron plate. However, Hualing's words reminded him that the Lu Manor had changed servants too frequently. Was there something fishy going on here? Lu Ying was currently entertaining guests. A servant came forward and whispered a few words into his ear. His eyes lit up and he immediately left the guests beside him, quickly walking to the side courtyard. That impatient mood and anxious steps, looking from afar, he looked like a round meatball. No, it was a round sausage wrapped in festive red clothes. Once he entered the side courtyard, he saw Zhao Qing with his back to him. Lu Ying rubbed his hands and immediately went forward. Hearing the sound behind him, Zhao Qing turned around and said with a smile, Lord Lu, I wish you a long and happy life. Thank you for your kind words, Mr. Xiao. Lu Ying cupped his hands and asked anxiously, By the way, where's the gift? Zhao Qing pretended to be troubled. Lord Lu, it's almost time. Do you want to preside over the birthday banquet first, and come back later to see the gift this Xiao has prepared for you? How could Lu Ying care about these things at this time? His mind was already captivated by the cold and handsome person standing under the light that night. These few days he did not eat or drink, and he had lost a lot of weight. Now that she knew that the person she had been longing for was in her residence, how could she hold herself back? When Zhao Qing saw how impatient he was, he inwardly despised him. However, he still wore a courteous smile on his face. He felt that the timing was just right, so he said meaningfully, Lord Lu, you also know that this Xiao has put in a lot of effort to prepare this congratulatory gift. Can you put in a few good words for this Xiao when the salt patrol of the two Huai provinces comes down? Lu Ying smiled when he heard this. Mr. Xiao, you can rest assured. The newly appointed Salt Patrol Imperial Censor is my nephew. When the time comes, no matter how much you want to go back on your word, just leave it to this official. I guarantee that you'll earn a lot this time, just like last time. Then this Xiao will thank Lord Lu for your help. Zhao Qing bowed in fear and trepidation. Mr. Xiao, what are you saying? All these years, if it weren't for our cooperation, how could this official be so unrestrained? Although Lu Ying was anxious to see the gift, his mind was still clear. He still had to maintain the relationship between the two of them. Lord Lu is too polite. Then let's not waste any more time. Let's go and see if the gift is to your liking, Zhao Qing said. Lu Ying's eyes shone with a green light. Okay. Let's go now. Looking at Lu Ying's back, Zhao Qing revealed a fox-like smile and followed after him. The two chests were placed in the courtyard, surrounded by Zhao family servants. When they saw Lu Ying and Zhao Qing enter, they immediately retreated to the side. Where is the person? Lu Ying walked around the courtyard, but did not see the person he was thinking of. His tone was a little impatient. Zhao Qing immediately went forward to appease him. Lord Lu, please don't be impatient. The person is right here. Lu Ying looked in the direction he was pointing and saw the two large chests tied with red silk placed not far away. Lu Ying was immediately displeased. Mr. Xiao, are you playing with this official? This official only sees two chests. The person you speak of is not in them. Zhao Qing did not mind Lu Ying's attitude at all. Instead, he gestured to the servants. The servants immediately went forward to untie the red silk and opened the largest chest. Lord Lu, please take a look. Zhao Qing gestured with his hand. Lu Ying could not help but go forward to take a look. He saw a person sleeping soundly in the chest. It was a handsome man. Lu Ying's eyes widened. This. Zhao Qing went forward and said with a smile. Lord Lu, this is this Zhao's gift to you. Are you satisfied? Lu Ying looked at the person in the chest again. His features were high and distant, and he had an elegant and refined temperament. His skin was as white as jade, and even more delicate and lustrous than a woman's. Suddenly, he felt that all the young men and women he had seen over the years were not even fit to carry his shoes when compared to this person. It could be said that one was a star in the sky that could not be compared to the other, while the other was the mud on the ground. He rubbed his hands and continued to look down. His black robes made his figure look tall and lean. His fingers were long and slender, and he looked even better than a woman. At this moment, his hands were casually placed on his waist. Lu Ying could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He did not know what kind of scenery would be inside when he undid his belt and removed his clothes. Zhao Qing saw that his expression was becoming more and more vulgar, and more disgusting. However, he had been in the business world for many years, and had long trained to maintain his composure. He saw that Lu Ying could not help but reach out to touch the person in the wooden chest. There were outsiders around, and he was simply too unscrupulous. Thus, Zhao Qing immediately said, Lord Lu, this Xiao has not only prepared a gift for you. The other chest is also one. Do you not intend to open it and take a look? Lu Ying heard this and reluctantly withdrew his hand. However, he did not forget to say to Zhao Qing, Boss Xiao, this gift is very much to this official's liking. From today onwards, this official will definitely not treat you unfairly. Zhao Qing immediately bowed and said modestly, It is this Xiao's fortune to be able to share Lord Lu's burden. Lu Ying was very satisfied with his attitude. At this moment, the servant had already opened the other chest. Chapter 214. When the small box was opened, Lu Ying coincidentally turned his gaze over. When he saw what was inside, his eyes widened in shock. What a beautiful little doll. Her long eyelashes fluttered like the wings of a butterfly. Her pink lips were as red as the peach blossoms in March and April, causing one's heart to be restless. Lu Ying couldn't help but walk forward and shake his head. He said in disbelief, Boss Xiao, you sent this little doll just in time. Just in time. Even the heavens are helping me. Zhao Qing did not know what Lu Ying was talking about, but in the end, he had given the right congratulatory gift. Anyway, Lu Ying had already promised to help him with what he wanted to do, so he echoed, Congratulations, Lord Lu. All right, let's go to the birthday banquet first. I'll deal with this generous gift at night. After he finished speaking, Lu Ying clapped his hands and a few burly men walked in. These burly men carried the two boxes down. When Zhao Qing left with Lu Ying, he turned back and a trace of ruthlessness flashed across his eyes. Don't blame me for this. Who asked you to catch Lu Ying? If I didn't catch you first, as long as you were still in Pingyang City, you would have been caught by Lu Ying sooner or later. When the wooden box was closed once again, Chu Qingyan's tightly shut eyes slowly opened. Her surroundings were dark, and her clear eyes shone brightly. She snorted coldly. Did they think that it was a good deal to buy one, get one free? Luing, just you wait. If I don't turn your residence upside down, my surname isn't Chu. After a bumpy journey, she felt the box being placed on the ground. After a while, the heavy and powerful footsteps slowly faded away. Then, she heard the sound of the door being closed. Chu Qingyan waited for a while before opening the box. She didn't know how the big ice cube was and if he was in the same room as her. She got up and looked around. Seeing that she was the only one in the room, she immediately climbed out. She walked to the door and tried to pull it. She did it in passing, but unexpectedly, the door was not locked. Perhaps it was because Zhao Qing told Luing that they had been drugged with a very strong drug, so they did not take any precautions against them. Chu Qingyan chuckled, closed the door again, and then lay on the bed, leisurely waiting for the night to come. She didn't need to worry about Big Ice Cube at all. Huo Ling and the others would make a move tonight, and she could take advantage of the night to fish in troubled waters. Just thinking about it made her a little excited. When he arrived at the Lu estate, it was already evening. It was also late autumn, so night quickly arrived. In the bustling front yard, Luing was greeting everyone. The retired emperor's table was quite far away, so Luing did not notice the retired emperor. He happened to be sitting on the brightest seat in the hall, so the retired emperor could see all of his actions. They only heard the retired emperor take a bite of the chicken leg and sigh. He took another bite of the chicken leg and sighed. Huo Ling and the others were currently paying close attention to their surroundings, but they heard the retired emperor sigh again and again. They couldn't ignore him even if they wanted to. So Huo Ling braced himself and asked, "Old man, why are you sighing?" "This Luing, I don't know if it's because he's taken too much of the people's wealth. Look at him, he's getting fatter and fatter. When I saw him a few years ago, he only had 2 layers of meat on his stomach. Look at him now. It's like he's being blown on, walala, he's about to float." The retired emperor sighed again. Huo Ling, Turin, and the others felt like several crows were flying over their heads. Caw caw caw. After a while Huo Ling and Turin met up. Turin said in a low voice, "In another quarter of an hour, leave 3 people to protect the old man. The rest of the people will split into 3 groups. 1 group will go to meet up with Master, 1 group will go to the study, and 1 group will go to find more evidence." Huo Ling nodded. The 2 of them looked around with bright eyes, waiting for the time to come. The retired emperor poured himself a cup of wine and sighed again. But this time, he was full of melancholy and was not sighing casually like before. "Wanner, this time, it seems that us cannot protect the Lu family. You should be at ease. Your children and grandchildren will have their own fortune. You can just live your own life underground and don't worry too much, ha." In the inner courtyard of the Lu Manor, a young girl in pink was drawing something on a piece of paper in her room. Sometimes she was intoxicated, sometimes she was addicted. The picture on the paper gradually became clear. It was Xiao Su who stopped by the street vendor last night. And this young girl was none other than the girl who blackmailed Chu Qingyan last night, Lu Fu, Lu Ying's most beloved second wife's daughter. Since she was young, she relied on Lu Ying's pampering to be arrogant and overbearing. She was unruly and unkind, and her methods of punishment were all different. The servants in the Lu Manor were all afraid of her. When she was mentioned, they all retreated, afraid that they would be tortured by her strange punishments. And at this time, her personal maidservant hurriedly walked in and shouted, young miss, it's not good." At this moment, Lu Fu was concentrating on describing the appearance of the handsome man from last night. At this moment, she was interrupted by this shout. Her hand trembled, and a drop of ink fell on that white face. Lu Fu suddenly panicked and wanted to save it. But in a fluster, that black spot expanded and soaked that pair of beautiful eyes that couldn't be described. Lu Fu's fingers trembled slightly. She was so angry that she could not suppress the anger in her heart. At this time, the maidservant had already walked in front of her. She did not know that danger was coming, and was about to raise her head to report when she saw her master grab the ink slab on the table and fiercely throw it at her. Accompanied by a scream, the maidservant held her head and fell to the ground. Tears poured down, but she did not dare to cry. She knew that if she cried, her master would be even more annoyed and she would be even more unlucky. She quickly climbed up and did not dare to hold her head. She let the blood flow from her forehead and trembled as she said, "Master, I beg you to spare this servant, I beg you. You dog servant who does not know what is good for you. Do you know that you have ruined the painting that this young miss spent a day painstakingly drawing?" Lu Fu looked at her coldly. She could not wait to eat her alive. "Young miss, please forgive me. Young miss, please calm down. This servant has a very important matter to report to young miss. Therefore this servant disturbed young miss. This servant deserves to die." The maidservant immediately defended herself. "What important matter? Quickly say it. If you can't arouse this young miss' interest, you can sleep with this young miss pet tonight." Lu Fu coldly snorted. "Pet." The maidservant thought of those slippery snakes, and her whole person almost fainted. But she was more afraid that if she fainted, her master would directly throw her down. "Someone sent master a congratulatory gift. I heard that there is a child inside, and he looks very handsome," the maidservant quickly said. "Child." Lu Fu immediately narrowed her eyes. Her father raised prostitutes and liked men. It was not that she did not know about this matter. When she heard this, she understood what this child did. Her face immediately darkened. She had advised her father many times about this matter, but he did not listen. "Let's go, bring this young miss to see." "Yes." The two people hurried all the way to the room Chu Qingyan was currently in. Chapter 215. Chu Qingyan looked at the sky and guessed that it was about time. The Lu residence was so big, she had to take advantage of the dark and windy night to meet up with Big Ice Cube. Although she did not know where Big Ice Cube was, but Hualing and the rest should have started to move. As long as she found the fierce cavalry, it would be equivalent to finding Big Ice Cube. So Chu Qingyan jumped up from the bed like a carp and tiptoed to the door. She knew that because of the busy birthday banquet, there was not enough manpower and no one was guarding the door. She was prepared to open the door and escape when she heard a flurry of footsteps heading towards her. She knew that it was not good and immediately closed the door that she had just opened a little. The door had just closed when Lu Fu and her servant arrived. "Miss, the person is inside." The servant girl pointed at the door timidly. Lu Fu heard and slammed the door open with both hands and walked in. She saw a child sitting on the chair with her back facing her. Lu Fu immediately shouted angrily, "Who are you?" Chu Qingyan did not think that it would be a girl, and the voice sounded a little familiar. She turned her head when she heard the voice. However, the moment their gazes met, both of them were stunned. "It's you. It's you." The two spoke in unison. "Why are you here? Where is the person who was with you last night?" Again they spoke in unison. Lu Fu calmed down and swept away the fierce look from before. She raised her chin and said arrogantly, "I am the daughter of the governor of Pingyang City. Who are you? Where is the person who was with you last night?" It was only then that Chu Qingyan recalled that Luing had more than 10 concubines, and all of them were daughters. This woman in front of her was probably one of them. It was no wonder that she had looked at Chu Qingyan and Big Ice Cube with such arrogance last night. Without the tiger around, the backups were stronger. Disregarding everything else, Luing could be considered one of the top bosses in Pingyang City. "I am Chu Qingyan. A few days ago, I came to Pingyang City with my cousin and was kidnapped. I don't know why I appeared here today." Chu Qingyan had an innocent little face that was famous for deceiving the world. She only said a few words, but she looked pitiful and teary. When Lu Fu heard this, she roughly guessed what had happened. Someone must have taken a fancy to the two brothers' beauty and knew her father's preferences. So they kidnapped them and used this opportunity to reach some kind of agreement with her father. She was no longer surprised by this kind of thing that catered to her interests. But when Lu Fu saw that he was about to cry, she coldly snorted in her heart. If he were to appear in front of her own father, she reckoned that he would be devoured until there was nothing left. "You mean to say that not only you, but your cousin was also kidnapped?" This was what she was most concerned about. She didn't expect that the person who made her unable to eat or drink was actually so close to her. Of course, Chu Qingyan knew that this person had taken a fancy to her big ice block. She wanted to say that she was superficial, but at this moment, she had a plan in her heart. So she raised her eyes and pleaded, "Yes, Miss Liu, I think my cousin is also in your residence. Can you bring me to him? If we can be saved because of you, we will definitely not forget your kindness in the future." She originally wanted to chase this person out of the Liu residence, but after knowing that he was the cousin of the man last night, she was unwilling to do so. She intended to use this youth to get closer to that man. Hearing this youth's words was just what she wanted. "Okay, I will bring you to him now," Lu Fu said without hesitation. Anyway, she would not allow her father to touch these women again. "Miss, is this okay? If old master knows about this, he will punish you," the servant girl said anxiously. It was fine to let one go, but Miss intended to let two go. With old master's temper, no matter how much Miss was favored, he would not let it go easily. "Are you the master, or am I the master?" Lu Fu suddenly became angry. "Slap your own mouth." Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. This Lu Fu was not only unruly and willful, but also vicious. Indeed, if the upper beam was not straight, the lower beam would be crooked. At this moment, the servant girl was already slapping her mouth. Her red eyes were enough to see her pain. Chu Qingyan glanced at the wound on the servant girl's head, and thought that it must have something to do with Lu Fu. She couldn't bear to watch any longer. She walked to the door and said, "Are you leaving or not? I want to find my cousin." Lu Fu was stunned. This person dared to order her. But looking at the night, it was indeed not early. In another 2 hours, the birthday banquet would be over. At that time, her father would return and everything would be too late. So she swallowed her anger and said to the servant girl, "Save your energy. We still have to find him later." The servant girl agreed with tears in her eyes. So the three of them shuttled back and forth in the inner courtyard of the Liu residence. But after searching for a long time, they were like headless flies. Chu Qingyan didn't want to waste time with her anymore and directly asked, "Miss Liu, where is the place your father usually goes to in the residence?" Her voice fell and Lu Fu seemed to be enlightened. "It's Plum Osmanthus Garden. Yes, maybe he is there." Chu Qingyan heard that there was a clue and prepared to go with her. But at this moment, a low voice was heard. "Do you know where he is arranged?" Chu Qingyan didn't feel anything and thought that it was about the guests. But she found that Lu Fu's expression was a little strange. She saw Lu Fu pull her into the rockery beside her and said in a low voice, "Don't make a sound." She was clearly in her own residence. And as someone who was carried into the Liu residence, no one had seen her before. She didn't know what Lu Fu was afraid of. She felt that there was something fishy. Perhaps feeling Chu Qingyan's puzzled gaze, Lu Fu didn't want to pay attention to it. But remembering that this young man was that person's cousin, she reluctantly explained, "This person is a Taoist priest and is my father's guest. He usually likes to fiddle with pills and also likes children, especially children of your age. So don't let him find out." Likes children? This sounded very normal, but Lu Fu's words had a trace of disdain. Could it be that this person also likes to? And at this moment, that person happened to stop near the rockery, and was talking to someone. Lu Ying is really muddle-headed. He clearly knew that there was only one child missing from the 49. Today someone sent over, but he didn't immediately send it to me so that I could complete the array. He still wants to stay. He is really blinded by lust. That slightly low voice sounded again. "Master, don't worry. This disciple will go and help you find that child." Another voice sounded, seemingly comforting him. Suddenly another set of footsteps was heard. "Master, second senior brother just caught another child." "Good. The heavens are really helping me, just enough to gather 49 children." When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly recalled that previously in the tea house she heard about the children in the city going missing. Her heart was a little shocked, but she quickly calmed down and had a plan in her heart. Chapter 216. When the group of people left the artificial mountain, Lu Fu heaved a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to call her servant, she realized that she had fainted due to excessive blood loss. Lu Fu cursed silently, useless. Then, when she was about to turn around and call Chu Qingyan, she was knocked unconscious by a hand blade. She only had time to say one word. You. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and smiled evilly at Lu Fu. Thank you for sending me off. For the rest of the journey, it's better that you don't follow me. This way it's better for you, me, and everyone. Then, she walked out of the artificial mountain and saw a few people whose backs she could only see from afar. She immediately used her qinggong and quickly followed them. After she caught up, she saw that there were a total of 3 people in the group. One of them was wearing a Taoist robe and a Taoist hat. He had a hunched back and looked to be at least 40 or 50 years old. He must be the Taoist master that Lu Fu mentioned, Lu Ying's guest of honor. The other 2 were wearing gray Taoist robes and should be the Taoist master's disciples. Master, with these 49 people, will we really be able to cultivate the secret technique? One of the Taoist masters couldn't help but ask. With Master around, it's simply a matter of time. Don't you think so, Master? The other Taoist master said eagerly, trying to curry favor. Now that we have gathered all the people, it's the most crucial moment. Put away all your thoughts and be on your guard. Tonight, we can only succeed. Failure is not an option. The Taoist master lectured the 2 of them sternly. The 2 Taoist masters immediately lowered their heads. When the Taoist master saw this, he continued, I've already prepared everything a few days ago. Wu Lin, go and tell your senior to arrange everything properly. When we go later, we can start immediately. Since there's a full moon tonight, if we can't do it today, we can only delay it until tomorrow. The Taoist master snorted coldly in his heart. He guessed that Lu Ying planned to enjoy the child tonight, and then hand her over to him tomorrow. Luckily, he found another substitute, otherwise, he would have wasted a great opportunity today. A 15-year-old's Inchi was stronger than a 16-year-old's. The success rate would be higher. The Taoist master called Wu Lin immediately took the order and left first. Chu Qingyan followed them for a while and finally understood what was going on. These people were planning to use the 49 children to practice some kind of weird secret art. It was just like how they used virgin boys and girls to concoct some kind of secret medicine. She didn't expect that the plot on the screen. Disregarding human lives, ruthless and merciless, and disregarding human relations. If she hadn't met him today, perhaps after tonight, those dozens of lives would have withered away because of this. Chu Qingyan's heart was burning with rage. She was going to get the ice cube to punish such a person. So even if Xiao Laiqi was in the Lu residence, it was hard for them to find such a secluded place in such a short time. It was getting darker and darker. Chu Qingyan also felt it. She wanted to turn back and call for help, but she was afraid that she would delay the rescue. She weighed the pros and cons and decided to follow. After walking for half an hour, Chu Qingyan saw that the group of people stopped at the back of a mountain which was covered with vines. She observed them suspiciously. This place didn't have a courtyard or a place for people to stay. What were they doing here? Just as Chu Qingyan was puzzled, she saw another Taoist master stretch out his hand to push aside the vines. Under the moonlight, there seemed to be something under the vines that reflected a faint light. When she saw it clearly, she found out that it was a metal door. She was slightly surprised. Half an hour ago, Turin brought people to Plum Osmanthus Garden. Master, our people have already split into 3 groups according to your instructions. Turin stood in front of his master and reported the current progress. Xiao Su turned around and said to Turin, Have you found Qingyan? Turin has already brought people to the inner courtyard to look for the young princess consort. I think they have already found her. Guo Ling estimated the time and said, Xiao Su felt slightly uneasy, but that uneasiness disappeared very quickly. At this moment, one of the 3 teams came back. One of them came forward and handed over the information he had obtained from the study with both hands. Master, I found these private letters with the other officials in the secret compartment of Lu Ying's study. There was evidence of him using money to buy official positions, bribery, embezzlement of the treasury funds and so on. There was also evidence of him colluding with the merchants in Pingyang City. Among them, There was an account book that recorded his transactions with these merchants. Xiao casually took one of the letters and flipped through it. His expression was a little ugly. He had thought that Lu Ying was only using his power for personal gain. He did not expect that his hands would stretch so far. It could be said that he was covering the sky with one hand. He slowly closed the paper in his hand. All right, since this prince is passing by Governor Lu's birthday banquet, how can I be absent? Of course, how can we miss out on such a lively event? Hualing instantly revealed an excited smile. Xiao clasped his hands behind his back and faced the bright moonlight. His eyes were as dark as the night. In the front courtyard, the guests and the host were enjoying themselves. There was laughter and laughter. Because Lu Ying had invited a few opera troupes, they were currently singing a play of the 8 immortals crossing the sea. Suddenly, from all directions, black-robed guards rushed out and surrounded everyone in the blink of an eye. Before everyone could regain their senses from the singing and dancing, those silver knives that suddenly lit up scared them out of their wits. Seeing this scene, Lu Ying was already a little drunk. Seeing that there were actually people who dared to cause trouble at his banquet, he immediately shouted, "Who are you people? How dare you trespass into the official residence of the imperial court? Quickly retreat." And just as he finished speaking, in front of the stage, a tall and cold figure appeared. Lu Ying's eyes were wide open. At this moment, his brain could not turn and his tongue could not straighten. "Beauty, beauty, why are you here? Didn't you say that you were drugged? Quick, come over and let this official take a look. When you are awake, this official's heart itches even more than when you are asleep." When Hualing, Xiao Laiqi and the others heard Lu Ying's words, they released their killing intent and tightly gripped their weapons. This person was his skin itching? Everyone present heard this and looked at each other in dismay. They had heard that Lu Ying liked men, but he had always been secretive about it. This was the first time that he had spoken so openly. Everyone did not know how to react. Moreover, they had a feeling that the man in front of them who came with the wind and the cold moon had a noble temperament that could not be blasphemed. He did not seem to be a simple person. Chapter 217. When Lu Ying finished speaking, that noble and inviolable figure slowly walked forward. His eyes were as cold as the moon. Even though Lu Ying was already drunk, he could not help but shudder in the face of this cold gaze. However, he had not understood his situation and said fearlessly, "Beauty, why didn't you obediently stay in your room and wait for me to pamper you? Why did you come here to join in the fun? The smell of alcohol outside is so strong that it will dirty your clothes." As he spoke, Lu Ying stretched out his hand to grab the person in front of him. However, when he stretched out his trotter, a bright knife was placed in front of him. The sharp tip of the knife reflected the fire and shone with a piercing light. Lu Ying was stunned and his reaction was a little slow. "Aren't you all going to retreat? Don't you know who I am? If you offend your superiors, you will have your residence confiscated." "Oh, if you offend your superiors, you will have your residence confiscated. Then I will deal with it impartially," Xiao said calmly. His words carried a hint of seriousness. Before Lu Ying could understand what he meant, he heard the beauty in front of him give an order. "Hualing, attack." "Yes." Hualing counted the men and horses, and quickly left the front yard. What are you doing?" Lu Ying stammered as he watched the group of people leave. They were really serious. Zhao Qing, who was watching from the crowd, immediately stepped forward and asked with a bad expression, "My lord, what exactly is going on?" "I don't know either. Weren't you the one who sent them here?" After a moment of shock, Zhao Qing slowly regained his senses. He turned around and saw that the guests he had invited were all discussing anxiously, and his residence was already surrounded. He immediately turned to Xiao and said angrily, "Xiao, don't worry. Who exactly are you? Trespassing into the residence of an official of the imperial court is a serious crime. If you stop quickly, I will be lenient with you." Xiao's gaze swept across the people present. There were many officials from the 3 districts and 7 counties, as well as merchants from the area around Pingyang City. He sneered inwardly. Everyone was present. Finally, his gaze landed on Lu Ying in front of him. He said with a faint smile, Lord Lu, weren't you the one who invited me to the Lu residence? You're so forgetful. Indeed, it was Zhao Qingjian who sent him into the residence, so the charge of trespassing was not valid. Wait a moment. Lu Ying clearly heard the way he addressed himself. This prince? Lu Ying and Zhao Qing looked at each other. Could this person be Lord? However, other than His Royal Highness, none of the other princes of the royal family had been conferred the title of king. Are you the King of England? But that's not right. The King of England's face was burned by the fire. It's impossible for him to look like you. Lu Ying comforted himself. He didn't believe that the person in front of him was the King of England. Hua Ling took a step forward and gave a cold laugh. Lu Ying, the one in front of you is the Sichuan's eldest prince. His Royal Highness was personally conferred by the Emperor. Why aren't you kneeling after seeing him? When Hua Ling said this, he specially used his cultivation, so the entire front yard could clearly hear his words. Everyone was shocked and they all knelt down with a putong sound in fear. It was rumored that His Royal Highness was bloodthirsty, cold, and merciless. Now that he had fallen into his hands, it was unknown what kind of cruel treatment he would receive. Those with guilty hearts felt their hands and feet tremble. In the blink of an eye, all the guests in the front yard were kneeling down. Greetings to His Royal Highness. Lu Ying and Zhao Qing looked around and saw that everyone was kneeling down. The two of them looked at each other, and a sense of crisis filled their hearts. Lu Ying saw the cold glint in the hands of the black-clothed guards. He knew that if he admitted this person's identity tonight, he would be consigned to eternal damnation. He immediately reached out his hand. Wait. Xiao Su looked at him with interest. What right do you have to say that he is the King of England? This official heard that His Royal Highness was disfigured by the fire in the palace 10 years ago. Look at his face now. It doesn't look like he was burned by the fire. He is obviously impersonating the King of England to plot against us, the officials of the imperial court, and the people of the Celestial Empire. As the father and mother of Pingyang City, how can this official allow an evil person like you to harm Pingyang City? Lu Ying spoke righteously and defended Pingyang City, acting as if he was an honest and upright official who loved the people. Lu Ying, you don't have to mislead us. My lord has only disguised himself for the sake of convenience. Open your dog eyes and look at this. Hua Ling raised his hand and held a token in his palm. There was a word written on it. Ing. Lu Ying was stunned on the spot. He was really the King of England, but he could not admit it. Once he did, everything would be over. This person in front of him was obviously going to punish him severely. Evil came from the guts. No, this token is fake. Everyone, don't be fooled by him. I have seen His Royal Highness. He is impersonating the King of England and is plotting against Pingyang City. Everyone, don't listen to him. Men, capture these people. Lu Ying immediately turned and shouted at the people kneeling on the ground. His tone was full of determination. Everyone was a little shaken. When Lu Ying gave the order, a group of soldiers dressed in armor suddenly appeared and surrounded everyone present. They were orderly and solemn. They lit up their weapons and confronted the people brought by Xiao Su. Lu Ying, you have raised soldiers without permission. You are guilty of one more crime. Xiao Su's tone was calm. He was not disturbed by the sudden appearance of these soldiers. Lu Ying sneered. Don't put on an act to deceive everyone. Men, attack. Capture these thieves for me. I will reward you handsomely. Seeing that a fierce battle was about to break out, Lu Ying was very confident. He had more people than them, so he was not afraid that these people would not surrender. However, when he saw Xiao Su's calm face, as if he was not afraid of his order at all, the bad premonition in his heart became even stronger. Could it be that this person was really His Highness Prince Ying? But Lu Ying calmed down very quickly. So what if he was the King of England? An unfavored prince was useless. As long as he dealt with him carefully and did not leak any information, the death of a powerless prince would not cause any waves. So his men approached the people brought by Xiao Su. Under the gentle moonlight, Xiao Su stood in front of the stage. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, revealing a mocking expression, as if he had seen through Lu Ying's plan. You are really stubborn. Originally, he had given him some face for the sake of his imperial grandmother, but it seemed that it was no longer necessary. It was almost time for them to arrive. Right at the moment when the weapons clashed, the door of the Lu estate abruptly opened, and a row of armored soldiers trotted into the estate in an orderly manner. Their movements were swift, without any hesitation, and it was completely silent. Besides the heavy footsteps, no other sounds could be heard, and it was sufficient to show the strict management of this army. When the leader of the soldiers entered the residence, he saw the bright figure in front of the stage. He quickly stepped forward and knelt on one knee. "The subordinate has arrived late. Please forgive His Royal Highness." "It really is His Royal Highness, it really is." A clamor sounded, filled with panic, fear and shock. Chapter 218. Get up. Xiao Su gestured for the general to get up. When Lu Ying saw the general turn around, he was stunned on the spot. He had seen this general before. He had met him once when he entered the capital to meet the emperor. The governor of 2 Rivers, Sun Zichuan, controlled 3,000 soldiers and horses, and was in charge of the upper reaches of Zhujiang. This person had once guarded the borders with the King of England and Xiao Su. He had made great contributions on the battlefield, and was later appointed as the governor of 2 Rivers by the emperor. Lu Ying felt that something was amiss. No, it should be that a great disaster was about to befall him. Governor Sun turned to look at him and frowned. "Lu Ying, why aren't you kneeling down and greeting His Royal Highness?" Lu Ying's legs trembled, and he collapsed to the ground. "I, Lu Ying, greet His Royal Highness." He had actually taken a fancy to His Royal Highness, and wanted to force himself on him. He even wanted to kill him to silence him. Fortunately, he did not have the time to do so. Otherwise, he would be even more guilty. "Your humble servant is blind and did not recognize Your Highness. Just now, I thought that someone was impersonating Your Highness with the intention of harming the citizens of Pingyang City. Thus, I have offended Your Highness. Please forgive me." Even though the mistake had already been made, Lu Ying still did not give up on his final struggle. "Is that so?" Xiao Su glanced at him indifferently, and turned to look at Zhao Qing, who was kneeling beside him. Zhao Qing had already bent his knees and bowed his head when Governor Sun entered. Now that he felt the hesitant gaze above him, he wished he could dig a hole in the ground and hide in it. He could have captured anyone, but he had to capture a prince. He really wanted to slap himself. At this moment, the search team had already returned. One of them reported, "Reporting to the Lord, I found 3 million taels of silver, a number of gold, silver and jewels and dozens of land deeds and shops in the storehouse." As soon as he said that, the people in the front yard were in an uproar. He was just a governor, but he was so rich. It went without saying where he got all this money. Xiao Su looked at Lu Ying, who was sprawled on the ground in front of him, and said indifferently, "Lord Lu, how do you explain these things?" This. Lu Ying was speechless. When Xiao Su was about to order his men to take him away, Lu Ying suddenly raised his head and whispered, "Your Highness, this lowly official is the 19th generation descendant of the Lu family. This accident can be said to be like a flood rushing against the Dragon King's temple. Family members do not know each other. Could you please be magnanimous and let this lowly official go? The 3 million taels, as well as the land and house deeds, will all be given to Your Highness." Xiao Su looked at him coldly. "Lu Ying, you used your position to bribe and take bribes. You took advantage of the people's wealth, oppressed the people, and embezzled public funds. Your crimes are unforgivable and cannot be forgiven." After saying this, Hualing handed over a stack of letters. Xiao Su casually took them and threw them in front of him. "The Son of Heaven is guilty of the same crime as the common people. Now that there are witnesses and evidence, you should save these words for His Majesty." Lu Ying picked up the paper on the ground with trembling hands. With just a glance, he almost fainted. This King of England was so fast that he did not have time to destroy the evidence. The retired emperor sighed softly. This Lu Ying had bumped into the muzzle of a gun. The reason why he executed him on the day of his birthday banquet and took him down in front of everyone was to cut off his escape route. Even if the Lu family wanted to save him, they would not be able to do so. In front of all the people in Pingyang City, his crimes were spread out and listed. The evidence was conclusive and the witnesses were these people. Even if the Lu family wanted to suppress it, it would be difficult to stop the mouths of the people. It had to be said that this grandson of his was indeed a rare talent. The retired emperor slowly stood up and walked through the crowd to stand in front of Lu Ying. Lu Ying saw a shadow in front of him and slowly raised his head. He saw that the person standing in front of him was actually the retired emperor. He was instantly delighted. Retired emperor, save this lowly official. You brought this upon yourself. This emperor has not been in charge of matters for many years. Take care of yourself. The retired emperor shook his head. Hearing this, Lu Ying's entire body went limp on the ground. At this moment, Xiao had already ordered people to take him away. Lu Ying hung his head as he was taken away. However, before he left, he looked unwillingly at the person standing under the moonlight. The Lu family would not be defeated so easily. Xiao, just you wait. Sooner or later, I will make you regret it. Lord Sun, investigate the people in this front courtyard one by one. If there is anyone who colluded with Lu Ying to commit illegal acts, punish them severely. Xiao turned to Governor Sun and said, This subordinate will not disappoint you. Governor Sun responded and waved his hand to let his subordinates carry out the order. When the matter finally came to an end, Turin rushed over with his men. He looked anxious as he walked to his master and said quickly, Master, the young master is missing. What? Xiao's body stiffened. At the remote back mountain of the Lu residence, the Taoist priest and the Taoist priest opened the iron gate. Chu Qingyan was a little anxious behind them. Hearing their words just now, they were planning to take action immediately and take the lives of these children. Chu Qingyan felt that they could not delay any longer. Once the iron gate was closed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thus she made a bold decision. The Taoist priest, who was about to enter the iron gate, heard footsteps behind him. He immediately turned his head and asked warily, Who is it? He saw a youth slowly walk out from behind the big tree. The moonlight illuminated his sleeves, upper body, and handsome little face. The Taoist priest clenched his fists and hid them in his sleeves. He said coldly, Who are you? Why are you here? Chu Qingyan blinked her large eyes. I am an outsider who was caught and brought into the Lu residence. I don't know how I ended up here. Can you tell me how to escape from the Lu residence? My cousin will be worried if he can't find me. So it was an inexperienced young master. The Taoist priest remembered the news he received earlier. This person should be the congratulatory gift that Zhao Qing gave to Lu Ying. He came out of seclusion to catch him. Thus, he loosened his fingers and tried his best to put on a benevolent look. So you're lost? Then come to Grandpa. Grandpa will bring you out. Chu Qingyan looked at his face, which was uglier than crying. She felt a little nauseous. But seeing that he believed her words, she could not help but feel relieved. Really? You will bring me out? Chu Qingyan pretended to be ignorant and asked carefully. Of course I never lie. Let's go, young master. Go through this door. After we pass through the underground tunnel, we will be able to pass through the wall. You will be able to regain your freedom. The Taoist priest coaxed her. Chu Qingyan sneered in her heart. He really treated her like a fool. But today, she really had to go. Okay. Chu Qingyan walked in front of them and obediently entered through the iron gate. The Taoist priest and the Taoist priest behind her revealed a sinister smile. Then the iron gate fell heavily. The light from the outside world was isolated from the darkness. Chapter 219. When the iron door was closed, her eyes immediately fell into darkness. She felt the two eyes behind her were like a poisonous scorpion, coldly landing on her body. But she already had no way out, so she pretended to be afraid and said, It's so dark. Don't worry, there's light. In the darkness, she saw the Taoist priest wave his hand. The stone wall beside him suddenly made a poochie sound, and a small flame flickered. And that flame seemed to be alive, slowly spreading along the stone wall, quickly lighting up one lamp after another. Chu Qingyan smelled the smell of kerosene in the air. Only then did she understand that the tunnels were filled with kerosene. Only a small flame was needed to light up the entire underground tunnel. And at the highest point, there was a barrel of kerosene. If the small plate was not opened, the kerosene would burn out, and the light would automatically extinguish. She could not help but admire the wisdom of the ancients. But this was not the time to sigh, because the Taoist priest behind her was already pushing her to quickly go down. Step by step, she slowly went down the stone steps. Under the light of the flames, she squinted her eyes and looked down. How deep did they have to be to have so many stone steps? After walking for more than half an hour, she walked on flat ground. And then there were 3 stone doors in front of her. Chu Qingyan could not help but frown. Why are there so many doors? Could it be that even a cunning rabbit has 3 holes? She saw the Taoist priest step forward, put his hand on the lion lock on the right door, turned it left 3 times, and then right 7 times. Then he took a few steps back, and the heavy stone door slowly rose. Chu Qingyan saw this scene for the first time, and was somewhat stunned. Seeing Chu Qingyan's surprised expression, the Taoist priest was even more certain that this kid's mind was simple and easy to fool, and his heart relaxed. Taoist priest, can't we go through the other 2 doors? Chu Qingyan withdrew her surprised expression and innocently asked. She saw the Taoist priest chuckle, and his voice echoed in the tunnel. This is the Yongguan Road, and that is the Hell's Door. Chu Qingyan felt her whole body turn cold. Her heart already had a bad guess. Master. When they arrived at another stone door, she saw a Taoist priest in the same gray robe standing by the side, bowing to the Taoist priest. When they saw Chu Qingyan, they were not surprised at all, because there were dozens of young boys and girls of the same age as her. Chu Qingyan did not show any panic. Instead, she smiled and said to the Taoist priest, "Is this your territory? It's so big." The Taoist priest smiled meaningfully. "Young master, do you want to take a look inside? It's even bigger inside." Chu Qingyan readily agreed. The Taoist priest smiled and brought her into the stone door. After entering the door, Chu Qingyan's field of vision widened. In front of her was at least the size of a horse-riding field. However, there were dozens of large and small wooden cells inside. Chu Qingyan took a closer look and realized that there were children around her age locked up inside. The children who were locked up in the prison looked at them with fear. They looked timid, and their clothes were dirty. It was obvious that they had been here for a while. At this moment, the Taoist priest pushed Chu Qingyan forward, finally revealing his fox tail. "Kid, you'll stay with them today." Chu Qingyan staggered. A few Taoist priests quickly came up and held her. One of them asked, "Master, do you want to lock this person in the wooden prison? 49 children are enough. Wouldn't it be useless to have one more?" The Taoist priest looked at his disciples with a disappointed expression. "Do you think that there won't be any mistakes during the casting of the spell? Keep this child as a backup. If someone dies halfway, this person can take over." Once he said that, Chu Qingyan felt a commotion among the children in the wooden prison. Many of them were already crying out loud. Some of the Taoist priests who were watching over them stepped forward and lashed their whips at the wooden prison. "If you cry again, I won't go easy on you. This time, the whip won't hit here, but on your bodies." Cruel, violent, bloody, and inhumane. Chu Qingyan gritted her teeth and clenched her fists. She suppressed the anger in her chest and let these people push her into another wooden prison. "In another hour, we'll start." The Taoist priest stroked his white beard and looked at the dozens of wooden prisons with satisfaction. Everything was ready. He was only one step away from success. Ha ha ha. Surrounded by demonic sounds, Chu Qingyan glanced at the Taoist priest who was immersed in the joy of success. She looked around to see if there was a chance for her to escape. There were a total of 12 people watching over the prisoners. They all held weapons in their hands. There were 3 stone doors at the side. One was the exit. One seemed to be the place where the tools were placed, and the last one should be the place where the Taoist priests were resting. She, on the other hand, only had an hour. Time was tight. How could she save them? In the front yard of the Lu residence. When Turin finished speaking, Xiao Su's expression changed slightly. He said to the Emperor Emeritus, "Imperial Grandfather, I'll leave the rest to you." After speaking, he didn't wait for the Emperor Emeritus's reaction. He immediately left everyone behind and headed towards the rear yard. Huling and Turin immediately followed after seeing this, leaving the Emperor Emeritus to stare at the people in the front yard. He stomped his feet and shouted, "You little bastard!" Once they reached the rear yard, Xiao pushed open the place where Chu Qingyan had been. There was no one inside. He frowned and turned to leave, but inadvertently saw a drop of blood left by Chu Qingyan's servant girl. He bent down to check, and his expression instantly darkened. Turin also noticed it at this time and immediately said, "This subordinate was in a hurry just now and didn't notice this drop of blood." At this time, Huling had already pressed down the burly men who had sent the little princess Consort here, and threw them to the ground. Those burly men with tiger-like physiques were trembling like little sheep at this time. "Speak quickly. What did you do to our little young master?" Huling took out his weapon and placed it on one of the men's neck as he questioned. "Heroes, please spare us. We don't know where the little young master went." We carried the wooden chest into the room and saw that the little young master didn't wake up, so we didn't pay much attention and closed the door. Our brothers went to the corner to play mahjong. We don't know how the little young master disappeared in the end. One of the men raised his hands and said as if he wanted to cry but had no tears. Who knew how a person who was clearly drugged and unconscious disappeared? Huling raised his head and said to his master, whose eyes were as cold as ice, "This subordinate feels that these people should be telling the truth. When this subordinate found them just now, they were playing mahjong and didn't know what happened in the front yard at all." Xiao looked at the drop of blood on the ground. His tone was as cold as ice. "Not a fly can fly out of the entire Lu Fu. They should still be in the Fu. Dig 3 feet into the ground and search for them." Chapter 220. On this side, Chu Qingyan was quiet and did not make a fuss. The patrolling Taoists were initially worried about her, but seeing how obedient she was, they reduced their surveillance on her. They formed groups of 2s and 3s, drinking and playing finger-guessing games at the side. Chu Qingyan paid close attention to their movements. Seeing that they had already let down their guard and were playing on their own, she checked the small wooden cells around her. Coincidentally, in order to save space, these wooden cells were all close to each other. At one glance, she saw those children with blank and fearful eyes cowering in the corners of the wooden cells. Some of them were even sobbing softly. At this moment, she was trying to comfort those crying children. Hence, she asked the little girl who was nearer to her, "Little girl, are you all citizens of Pingyang City?" "I am." "She is not. She is from the neighboring town." A little girl with 2 braids was slightly braver, and answered on behalf of the little girl who was sobbing uncontrollably. Chu Qingyan thought that Lu Ying and that Taoist priest had not only captured the citizens of this city, they had also extended their hands to the other towns. "Where did you come from? How did you get caught?" A youth around the age of 10 suddenly spoke up as he glanced at Chu Qingyan. He had been paying attention to her the moment she walked in. Every child that came in would cry and make a fuss. She was the only one who was careful and obedient. It was as if she did not know that a massacre was waiting for her. Chu Qingyan heard the voice and looked over. She saw a youth who was 2 wooden cells away from her looking in her direction. How should she describe this youth? He had sharp brows and bright eyes. Although his clothes were tattered and his face was covered in dirt, it could not hide his calm demeanor. His eyes were unusually bright. "I am from another city. I was caught the moment I arrived in Pingyang City." Chu Qingyan avoided the main point and answered lightly. Anyway, it was useless to say too much to him. That youth was silent for a moment, then said to her, "These people intend to use us to refine medicine. We may not live past tonight." As soon as he said this, everyone began to sob softly. Perhaps it was because they had been threatened too many times before, but now they only dared to suppress their sadness and despair. Chu Qingyan didn't expect this person to tell him this fact so calmly, and he didn't seem to be afraid at all. After he finished speaking, it caused everyone's emotions to fluctuate. He frowned and was a little annoyed. Chu Qingyan knew that he was telling her the truth. She felt a little grateful, But she kept a calm face and said softly to the sobbing boys and girls, "Don't worry, nothing will happen to you tonight. Don't speak empty words. You're also a clay bodhisattva crossing the river. You can't even protect yourself." The youth glanced at her, as if he didn't agree with her empty words. Chu Qingyan chuckled and looked around. "That's not empty talk." The young man looked at her in confusion, but when he saw the confidence in her eyes, the doubt in his heart turned into a question. "You have a way?" "Right." She gently nodded and took out a piece of agarwood. She turned to look at the youth. From her observation just now, this youth was quiet and didn't cry. He had a maturity that was different from his peers, so he should be able to be her helper. So she said in a low voice, "I have this piece of agarwood. Once it's lit, it will have the effect of a sleeping incense. This amount of medicine is enough to knock out all the guards." After she said this, she took out a fire starter from her sleeve. The fire starter was given to her by Hualing when he was investigating the Lu Manor. She thought that it might be useful in today's birthday banquet, but she didn't think that it would really come in handy. As for that piece of agarwood, she had asked Ethereal for a piece when he was researching it in the first inn. She heard that the medicine was very strong. Just a little bit was enough to knock out a 200-pound pig. With fire and agarwood, the plan could be completed. "But if you light up the sleeping incense, we will also be knocked out." That youth felt that her plan was full of holes. Not to mention the fact that she wouldn't be able to knock out the other party. She would be knocked out first. Adding on the fact that there was a lock on each of these wooden cells, there were 50 different locks. How could she get out? So the youth didn't have any hope for her plan. Chu Qingyan gave a sly smile. He thought that if he could think of it, how could she not think of it? Without a foolproof plan, she wouldn't make a move so easily. She didn't answer the youth's question. Instead, she pulled out a dagger from her boot. This was the dagger that her father had given her before she left. Longing flashed through her eyes. That youth didn't know what she was thinking. When he suddenly saw her pull out the dagger and slash at his thigh, he wanted to say something to stop her. But when he saw the smile on her face, he immediately shut up. With a slight tearing sound, a long strip of cloth appeared in her hand. She then whispered, "Later, use this dagger to cut off the cloth. Then cover your noses to avoid inhaling the sleeping incense." When Chu Qingyan said that she had a plan, the nearby children had already focused their attention on her. When they heard her say that, they immediately showed a desire to live. Chu Qingyan looked at the youth whose eyes were filled with disbelief. With a stern face, she said to him, "Let them pass on the message one by one. Urge them to quickly cut off the cloth, otherwise there won't be enough time." That youth retracted his surprised expression. He didn't ask why she would give the task to him. He immediately turned his head to the people in the wooden prison and passed on the plan. One by one, everyone raised their heads and their eyes lit up. Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of a flock of crying lambs waiting to be fed. She couldn't help but laugh. At this time, she actually still had the mind to think about this. She had already handed the dagger to the nearest wooden prison. She watched them secretly cut off the cloth one by one, and then imitated her to tie it on their faces, until the youth made a hand gesture to her, indicating that everyone was done. After she nodded, she immediately turned her back to the guards and lit a match. Then she placed the agarwood over the fire to roast. This was the most direct, most effective and fastest way to spread the fragrance. Moreover, she was the last one to enter. The wooden prison was the closest to the periphery. There was a faint breeze, which was just enough to carry the fragrance to those tired Taoist priests. It could be said that the timing was right. Everyone was excited, agitated, and nervous as they watched the smoke curl up towards those guards. Chu Qingyan was confident that these Taoist priests would collapse very quickly, because Ethereal had once said that when the agarwood came into contact with someone who was already tired, the medicinal effects would take effect even faster. Chu Qingyan lit the agarwood and lamented. This agarwood was priceless. The best medicine was to grind it into powder. Now that she was burning it, the finger-sized agarwood was almost burnt out. When those guards collapsed one by one, everyone's eyes were filled with joy. Only that youth looked at Chu Qingyan with faint worry. Chapter 221. Time passed bit by bit. 1 hour was equivalent to 1 hour in modern times, and now more than half of it had already passed. Chu Qingyan's forehead was already covered in a dense layer of cold sweat, but she had already become the backbone of everyone. Her every action was related to whether these people could be saved, so she could not panic. After all the Taoist priests had collapsed, Chu Qingyan let out a sigh of relief. She threw the burnt agarwood aside and quickly stood up. Perhaps because she used too much strength, she swayed and immediately held onto the wooden cage. She shook her head, trying to wake herself up. The worry in the youth's eyes deepened, but now was not the time to ask. He could only silently watch as she took out a silver object from her bosom. Chu Qingyan looked at the strange key in her hand and suddenly smiled. When she first found out that the wood spirit was good at making all kinds of weapons, she asked him to make her a key that could open all the locks in the world. At that time, she still remembered the wood spirit looking at her like he had seen a ghost. It was only when she promised that she would not use the key to do anything bad that the wood spirit reluctantly agreed, and finally gave her the key. The wood spirit had reminded her that this key could open a normal lock, but if it was a secret chain, it would be very difficult to open it. She inserted the key into the keyhole and with a light turn the door opened. She was delighted, but did not delay. She directly walked out of the wooden cage, and first opened the youth's cage. Then she threw the key to him. "Help me open all the wooden cages." This youth looked like he could take on a heavy responsibility, and she had always doubted the people she used, but did not use them. So she gave him full authority. The youth originally had something to ask her, but after seeing her throw the key to him, he walked out of the wooden cage and walked towards the unconscious Taoist priests. He did not say anything and directly went to open the doors for the children. Chu Qingyan walked up to the Taoist priests, pulled out their weapons, and placed them on the ground. When the children were released and gathered around her, she turned to the young boys and girls, who had already regarded her as their backbone, and said in a low but firm voice, "We are not out of danger yet. Once the stone door is opened, we will be discovered." She pointed at the stone door that the Taoist priest had walked through and continued, "So, you have to learn how to protect yourselves. There are more than 10 swords here. Take them for self-defense. You can also use the stones on the ground as weapons. You can choose what you want, but you have to be fast." She spoke quickly and clearly. Everyone nodded and silently picked up their weapons. Then, they stood still without making a sound. Because earlier in the wooden prison, Chu Qingyan had already warned them not to make any noise. Otherwise they would be exposed and none of them would be able to escape tonight. Chu Qingyan was very satisfied with everyone's reaction. So she waved her hand and led everyone to another stone door. That was the stone door that she had been brought in from, so it would definitely lead to the exit. However, she remembered that there were 2 Taoist priests standing guard there. That stone door was their biggest test. Because if the sneak attack failed, the whole army would be wiped out. Chu Qingyan had already chosen a few strong-built youths with weapons in their hands to protect them. The girls walked in the middle, while she and the youth walked in front. Chu Qingyan realized that the youth was holding a long sword. She should not have been surprised, but Chu Qingyan had a feeling that the youth's sword-holding posture was correct, and he was very familiar with it. As they approached the stone door that would determine life and death, Chu Qingyan whispered, "There are 2 Taoist priests standing guard at the stone door. I'll take care of one. Can you take care of the other one?" "Okay." The youth agreed. Without hesitation or difficulty, Chu Qingyan subconsciously glanced at him, and tightened her grip on the dagger in her hand. This was the dagger that he had returned to her earlier. Although she felt that this youth was a little strange, it was more important to leave this place first. Not far away was the stone door. Hence, Chu Qingyan raised her hand and signaled the people behind her to stop. She instructed them to gather together and point their weapons outwards to protect themselves. Then she nodded her head at the youth, and the 2 of them cautiously walked closer to the stone door. At this moment, the 2 Taoist priests were chatting. "Say, if Master succeeds tonight, how many immortal pills can he refine? When the time comes, how many pills can he give to us? If each of our sect can obtain 1 pill, then we will be able to live forever. Wah, just thinking about it makes me woo." That Taoist priest had not finished his words when he felt that someone was approaching from behind. Before he could even turn his head, a hand blade chopped down and he fainted. When the other Taoist priest saw this, he wanted to cry out in alarm, but the knife on his neck had already neatly slit his throat. Following the flow of blood, he staggered and fell down. You killed him? Chu Qingyan looked at the youth whose sword was still dripping with blood. She was in disbelief that his actions were so clean and neat. Once the words came out of her mouth, she immediately shut her mouth. She did not have any right to criticize him. If it was not for his sword, they would have already been discovered. A dead man will not leak information. That youth raised his sword and stabbed the Taoist priest who had fainted by Chu Qingyan. That Taoist priest died. Chu Qingyan looked away. This was not the first time she saw someone kill someone, but her heart still felt strange. At this moment, that youth had already turned around to call the children. She did not think anymore and immediately led them towards the last stone door. As long as they passed through that stone door and opened the iron door, they would be able to safely leave this place. But when they arrived at the stone door, everyone was stunned, because this door only had a lion lock. Other than that, there was nothing else. How were they going to get out? Everyone's gaze once again fell on Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan kept her dagger and walked in front of the stone door. She recalled the steps that the Taoist priest had taken to open the door. Left 3 times, right 7 times. Then she retreated and waited for the stone door to open. But that stone door did not move at all. Chu Qingyan immediately narrowed her eyes. Was the password wrong? Just at this moment, that youth suddenly lay down. Chu Qingyan saw this and immediately asked vigilantly, "What's wrong?" That youth raised his head and said with an ugly expression, "I heard the sound of footsteps. It seems that this stone door has triggered something. We've been discovered." Chu Qingyan immediately cursed in her heart. It could not be that at this critical juncture, all their efforts would be in vain. The youth was right. An hour was almost up. When the Taoist priest came out to take the children out of the wooden prison, he saw that the wooden prison had been opened, and his fellow disciples were lying on the ground. The Taoist priest immediately cried out in alarm. At this moment, the wrong way of opening the stone door had triggered the mechanism inside. The Taoist priest heard the news and came out. Seeing this scene, he was instantly furious and ordered his disciples to immediately chase after the children who had escaped. Chapter 222. Not long after, his subordinates came to report that they had found 2 unconscious women in a fake mountain. Xiao Su ordered them to bring the women in. Lu Fu and the servant girl who did not know what was going on were brought in. "What are you doing?" "I am the daughter of the governor of Pingyang. Aren't you afraid that my father will behead you for doing this?" Lu Fu threatened the guards in black furiously. However, the guards in black turned a deaf ear to her, and only carried her away. "Kneel down," the guards in black ordered. Lu Fu had been doted on since young, and had never been frightened like this. Moreover, it was a man from the military camp who scolded her. She was so frightened that she immediately knelt down. At this moment, Xiao Su, whose back was facing Lu Fu, turned around. His eyes were cold. "Half an hour ago, were you the one who brought the people in this room away?" This voice was deep and magnetic. Lu Fu looked up in shock. When she saw the other party's face, her eyes became dazed. You are the man from that night?" Her nonsensical words made Xiao Su a little impatient. "This prince will ask again, where did you take the people in this room?" "It's really you. Young master, I have been looking for you for a long time. It's a pity that you seem to have disappeared from the face of the earth in Pingyang City. I couldn't find you and could only stay in this room and draw your face. However, I can't even draw out 1/3 of your elegance. It's fate that we meet again today." Lu Fu did not feel that she was in danger at all. She slowly stood up, covered her chest with one hand, and said affectionately. In the past, whenever she showed such an expression, everyone around her would obey her. Because of her father's status in Pingyang City, everyone flattered her. Slowly she thought that she was the most beautiful woman in Pingyang City. Now, she thought that her pitiful appearance could move the man in front of her. Unfortunately, Xiao Su was unmoved by her gesture, and even frowned. This made Lu Fu feel defeated. "Young master, do you not remember me?" Xiao Su had no impression of the woman in front of him. From what he knew, men and women all looked the same. On the side, Huiling cast a look of disdain at this love-struck woman. Their master, other than the people by his side, had never paid attention to insignificant people. Xiao Su felt that there was something wrong with this woman's head, and did not want to waste any more time with her. He ordered, "Huiling, take her away and interrogate her until she tells us where Qingyan is." "Yes." Huiling called 2 subordinates and prepared to pull Lu Fu away. At this moment, Lu Fu finally realized the situation she was in. She immediately waved her hands to block the approaching guards. After retreating a few steps, she immediately turned to Xiao Su and said, "Don't catch me, don't catch me. I'll talk. I'm the one who took him away." Xiao Su raised his hand to signal his subordinates to leave. He looked at her coldly. "Tell me the truth. Where is he? If there's even half a lie, the price will be one of your fingers." Lu Fu knelt on the ground weakly. He was clearly a handsome youth, but how did he become a cold and emotionless king of hell? In the stone room, everyone was trapped in the tunnel. There was a stone door blocking the way in front and a tiger and wolf pincer attack from behind. It could be said that they were at a dead end. "Woo-woo. I miss mother. I want to go home. I'm scared." Despair filled the dark tunnel. Emotions were contagious. One crying, 2 crying, it created a chain reaction. Chu Qingyan looked at the helpless children huddled together, and her heart sank. But she still bent down and comforted them with a gentle expression. "Don't cry first. It's not the last moment yet, we can't give up. And you can relax. Even if we're caught, they won't dare to do anything to us because they need us to refine medicine. But if we're caught, we'll still die. I don't want to die. I also don't want to die. I want to go home." One after another, cries rang out. That youth was already annoyed to the point that his head was about to explode. Hearing this clamor, he immediately got angry. "If you keep on making noise, they'll hear us and find us. None of us will be able to escape." As soon as his voice fell, everyone immediately covered their mouths and sobbed. Chu Qingyan smiled at that youth. Turning to those children, her gaze turned resolute. "You don't have to be afraid. You won't die. There are already soldiers searching the Lu residence. Very soon, they'll find our dungeon. As long as we persevere, we'll be able to escape." "Really?" a child asked in a small and timid voice. Chu Qingyan looked into that pair of dark and fearful eyes and slowly nodded. "Really, so don't be afraid." "Good." Many children listened to her words and slowly stopped crying. Sometimes, in a hopeless and helpless predicament, as long as someone stood up and used a firm and confident face to tell them that everything will be fine, then their courage would be rekindled. Suddenly, that youth whispered into her ear, "They'll be here soon." Chu Qingyan nodded and turned her gaze back to that stone door. Since she had already prepared for the worst, why not try that stone door again? That youth still wanted to say something to her, but he saw her gaze fall onto the lion lock. Her brows were slightly furrowed, as if she was deep in thought. "You intend to try opening that stone door?" That youth felt that this plan was hard to execute. "Let's just make a Hail Mary effort. Anyway, there's nothing to do right now." Chu Qingyan shrugged her shoulders, and then went forward to examine that lion lock. That youth did not agree, but there was nothing to do and let her do as she pleased. Chu Qingyan paced around that stone door a few steps. Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration. When she was outside, it was 3 to the left and 7 to the right. Now that she was inside, if she wanted to open it, wouldn't it be going in the opposite direction? 7 to the left and 3 to the right? She did as she said. At this time, Chu Qingyan immediately went forward and struggled to turn the lion lock. At this time, the hurried footsteps had already resounded through the passage. The echoes made everyone panic. Everyone immediately huddled together, placing their last hope on Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan held her breath, not paying attention to those approaching voices. She focused all her attention on the lock in her hand. After turning around, she immediately took 2 steps back. Seeing that the stone door began to move and then slowly rise, Chu Qingyan's heart was filled with joy. It's open, it's open. Everyone was happy. At this time, the stone door had not fully opened. Chu Qingyan and that youth had already begun to urge them to quickly go out. When everyone had passed through, those Taoist priests had already reached the end of the passage. When they saw them, they immediately shouted and rushed over. Those Taoist priests all knew how to open this stone door. Even if the stone door fell, they would still have a way to open it. Thus, Chu Qingyan made a prompt decision to the youth beside her. Raise your sword and stab into the lion's mouth quick. Just as the stone door fell, the youth did not hesitate to raise his sword and do it. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.